Bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panzer Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast.
All right, Joe, you said that you two previously met?
Yes.
Okay, so like
Joe, you don't have to admit to that. Okay.
Yeah, I met. I think we knew each other technically through social media. But my screen just went blank for some reason. We're still recording, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we met technically, I guess, through social media, but then we wound up not really making plans to hike, but just kind of like, I'm going to be here that day. And then we wound up kind of like crossing paths, which was cool. I was super new. I was like a complete rookie, even though it was, I don't know, a year and a half ago. I just started hiking in the mountains. And it's funny because he promised not to like make fun of me on, and I'm just making fun of myself right now.
Yeah, right.
I was trying to snowshoe.
Yeah,
I was trying to snowshoe for the first time, and I remember I had tails on my snowshoes. I was under the belief that like if you weighed over 200 pounds, I read somewhere that like you're supposed to use tails, even though on this rugged, rocky terrain, this is the devil's path. Going up, not the really tough part, but like the part going up, Hunter.
Yeah. We met at the end of Spruceton Road, heading out the trail to Diamond Notch Falls, and I saw Joe ahead of me, and I gave Joe some pointers, and look at where Joe is today. He's on a podcast, right?
Maybe a lot of great traction device. I have literally the list that you sent me.
Nice.
Refer to. I got my 10-point crampons this past winter. So
nice.
And we're going to hear tonight how Joe now goes all over the place. There's like your post this past weekend. It looks like you were like just hanging on the edge of death there, looking over this gully.
Gully.
Yeah, I don't even think I would get that close myself. Have you, Stosh? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been all over the Finger Lakes. I love, my friend lives up there right in Pena, and so he's like, I wouldn't say the heart of it, but very close. So, all right. So welcome to episode 136 of Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast. Tonight we have Joe T. How do you say your last name?
Teutonico.
Teutonico. Okay.
Yes.
Teutonico. God, it sounds so horrible that I don't know this and listen to.
Sounds like two tonics to go.
Exactly. Two tonics to go.
I'll take two gin and tonics to go.
How about we just call you Hiker Joey NY?
Just
That's
Joe.
easy.
Hiker Joe. Hiker Joe.
Hiker Joe. Hiker Joe sounds really good. What a good name. Yeah. So he's going to be joining us talking about, Joe has been all over freaking New York State. I'm jealous as heck as what you have been doing, because I'm just like flabbergasted by how much you've been all over New York State. He's been everywhere. So he's going to talk about his journey around New York State.
Yeah. Joe gets around like he's independently wealthy, or he married into money.
People have asked me that.
Both. Yeah.
People have asked me, do you still work? Like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I only post on Saturdays and Sundays. So it's like, I'm obviously,
so long as your boss isn't asking you.
Yes.
You still work, Joe, you still work? Right.
Well, no, that would not be a good. Yeah.
You post like 6 or 7 like different trails on Saturday and Sunday, so it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I was on the Bristol Hills branch of the Finger Lakes Trail, and I was in Conklin Gully, but it's also part of the greater kind of High Tour wildlife management area. So I like to go in from a separate entrance that's kind of lesser used. It's like a fishing access side, and it gives you, if you do the full sort of like double loop with 3 different ascents up to the plateau, you can actually get over 3,000 feet of elevation gain. So that's one of my hacks that I've done to train. I've literally just spent time. I found trails just studying topographic maps of the area, looking for public land on, plateaus and hills, mountainous hills, what Finger Lakes are kind of known for,
Yeah.
and gorges, obviously. Yeah.
I've been over there. I actually did a backpacking trip over in the High Tor management
Nice.
area. Started at Conklin Gully, and I forget where we ended, but it was on the top of the plateau in a parking area that absolutely nobody should have been. It was just absolutely insane and awesome time. We freaking went up Conklin's Gully in like Crocs because we had to go through all the waterfalls and stuff like that. It's just absolutely phenomenal. But anyway, let's get back on track. We'll talk about that stuff later on. So this Sunday, we will be at, well, I will be at, so far confirmed, Woodland Valley Trailhead for the DEC and 3500 Club Adopt a Trailhead program. I'll be there, probably just promoting the podcast, not really for the 3500 Club. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'll be there to teach and preach about the trail systems in the Catskills, hopefully leave no trace, stuff like that. Get the word out about that. I don't know. Tad hasn't confirmed yet.
Now that you say teach and preach, I'm not quite sure I have a hiking Bible. Do I need to bring a Bible if you're preaching, a hymnal? I mean, what exactly are you planning for Sunday?
What I'm teaching and preaching about the podcast. That's the only thing.
All right. Maybe I'll show.
Well, we'll be there this Sunday. Stop on by if you're through the area, just say hi. It doesn't matter. Whatever. We'll be there. So also next Saturday, which is the 31st, I believe, of August. Let me make sure of that because I remember I had this down. 31st of August will be the fire tower lighting event across New York State. So all the fire towers across New York State so far will be lit up for this event where you can see them kind of anywhere and everywhere that you can see them. So if you have the chance to go out after sunset, the fire towers will be lit up almost like they were back 50, 60 years ago when they were once occupied by the rangers or the stewards and stuff like that of the fire towers. So really cool event. I've seen it at least 3 times so far. Went on Panther Mountain and saw it, went on Mount Unseanthus, saw it, and went on Overlook and saw it. And it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. So I don't know if you guys are going to be out and about on the 31st, which is a Saturday night. Check it out. Be there. Joe, I think they have some 1 or 2 fire towers over in the Finger Lakes region.
Yeah, you cannot climb up to the top, though. They literally took the stairs out. One of them was actually refurbished by a group of volunteers. So I guess they just ran out of money and they didn't have the staffing to, the volunteers to come by. And so they didn't want to endanger, I guess, anyone going up or, one of them, I think they're both in Allegheny State Park.
It's below Ithaca and Woodstock. Geez, Watkins Glen, right?
Far away. It's actually 2.5. So even though it's technically like a local hike, it's 2.5 hours from Rochester. So I've actually been going down to Pennsylvania a little bit, straight south about the same, time. You can go to Hammersley Wild Area, which is one of the most remote places on the East Coast. It's one of the few places you can get, other than like the Adirondacks and the Catskills, where you can get more than 5 miles from a road, which is increasingly rare.
Yeah. What was the name of that place again, Joe?
Hammersley Wild Area. It's part of Susquehannock State Forest.
Nice. That sounds pretty
cool.
Cool.
Something called the Susquehannock Trail System, the STS. It's roughly, I think, an 80-mile loop.
Wow.
It only crosses like 3 roads the entire time. Yeah.
Is that part of Pennsylvania where they have moose or elk?
I think it does go by Elk. It's not in Elk County, but I think it's not far. It's that north central Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Nice.
And driving from Rochester, it's, all back roads. Like I was still in New York and I'm already on dirt roads going through these like Mennonite and Amish, very quaint communities. I'm going to definitely bring Cash next time to purchase jellies and jams that they run out to your car,
or trading beads. Right.
Or sheds.
Yeah, pelts. Yeah.
Get a shed and bring it home.
The whole community has to join in the raising of the shed.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. Fire Towers events, August 31st. Check it out wherever you're at. Look up on the FFLA website, and they have a New York State Fire Tower Association that you can check out, and you can sign up if your local fire tower is not involved in this. You can sign up to be there and light it up yourself. Also, September 21st and 22nd is the CMSAR, the Catskill Mountain Search and Rescue Wilderness First Aid Training class. You can sign up online, which is at Trailbound Project. Check it out, trailboundproject.com. Check out there. You can sign up online, and they're also having a CPR course available as well. Tad, you got some info about this as well, correct?
Yeah. I mean, after last week, I asked you if you knew what the cost was, and I stumped you on that one unintentionally. Right. But so I had our research staff check into it this week, and apparently the fee is a modest $2,500. You can pay by check, and you need to make your checks payable to Jessica Russin of Oneonta, New York.
Jessica
No relation. Jessica
Mullinex Russin.
Yes. No relation, I assume, though, Stosh.
No.
Even though your last names are spelled the same.
Lies. So you don't have to pay it to Jessica. Not really that I think anybody would fall for this. I think it's $226 that goes straight to the Catskill 3500 Club. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's a bargain.
It is, especially for a wilderness first aid training that is kind of essential that you need. I would think that's one of the 10 essentials that you need in case you run into that problem on the trail that could be a life-threatening injury that you could take care of, that could be a non-life-threatening injury. I mean,
it's definitely the next course that I'm looking to take.
Yeah, people bring the 10 essentials or the 20 essentials, whatever they pack in their pack. That's what they bring in, but sometimes they're lacking in the knowledge, experience to use that stuff and be more effective in helping someone. So it's a worthwhile class to take.
Yeah. Who knows? You might be, one of my friends was, his wife was on the Mink Hollow Trail, and she sprained her ankle coming down from Sugarloaf. And luckily he was trained in wilderness first aid. So what he did was just splinter it, and they actually walked out. I mean, I thought that was actually phenomenal to do that, especially as in the winter time too. So
sure. Yeah.
You never know what you would need for, like, everybody thinks they know how to do a tourniquet, but you really don't know how you need to do a tourniquet until you get trained to do it, because you're just like, just put it right here and put it tight. No, it's not like that. It really isn't. So
yeah, and just backing up, I see in last week's DEC Ranger reports, the most common injuries that required Ranger assistance were ankle and lower leg injuries.
I just read about an ankle injury in the Adirondacks.
You read about probably like 15 ankle injuries. So did I.
I mean, literally 5 minutes before I came on, there was a post about the latest in a series of ankle injuries.
Yeah.
25 all in the Adirondacks, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. I just see, I don't know if I feel like, I'm just like, well done, Catskills people for not being injured all the time. But
so let's ask Joe this question.
Yeah.
Joe's hiked all over the place. I suspect that there's fewer ankle injuries in the Catskills because the rocks are slipperier than elsewhere. Do you find that to be true?
The sedimentary rock is a lot more forgiving on the feet. I wear very minimalist trail runners, and in New Hampshire in particular, my feet started to hurt a little bit from the lack of give on the granite. And similarly in the Adirondacks, although that granite is so gnarly and old that I don't know, it has different characteristics, but
Yeah,
I
but
feel
it's
like
a
the
lot.
granite, yeah, definitely is less forgiving on
Mhm.
the, ankles and yeah.
So there you go. We're on to something here with Joe tonight.
Yeah. So
Yeah, around here
it's
it's like the Midwest basically. Like the trails are these perfectly graded clay and sand. It's beautiful. I mean, there's a lot of trail running around here
Mhm.
for a reason. People, it's
like
not
a,
all that
a,
different than running
a
on
lot of
the
people train here. It's really cool that the people train here. Stuff like good fucking. Can you hear my freaking dogs? Sorry.
I cannot.
Ah,
No.
thank God. They'll probably be picked up on here, but I do not know what's walking by. But anyway, so let's. I mean, we started off with a bang. Let's start off with an even bigger bang. So we didn't cover this last time. In Denning on August 5th at 3:30 p.m. Blue Hole stewards requested a forest ranger assistance with a subject who had fallen off his electronic skateboard on a
His
road
what? His what was up
electronic
against us?
skateboard
Interesting.
on Peekamoose Riparian corridor. So Peekamoose Road. Forest Rangers Horn and Russo found the 19-year-old from New Jersey in the parking area with the stewards. Rangers cleaned the subject's cut and wrapped a deep wound above his knee before helping him back to his campsite, where he decided to seek further medical attention on his own. God bless America.
Yeah, there's a long pause after that one. So apparently, Peekamoose Blue Hole is becoming a skateboard park. That's what I'm reading into this, right? An electronic skateboard, nonetheless.
I've been seeing bike tires in strange areas, like where a bike shouldn't be able to ride. And I'm wondering if it's one of these like new motorized, sort of half motorized,
The
half
e-bike.
pedal e-bikes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty powerful, those e-bikes.
Yeah, they are. You can freaking travel 25 miles an hour for, 30 miles. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I have a
Makes
coworker
everything-
that once went home in the snow from the healthcare facility, and that was, a good 10, 12 miles.
Ah,
He almost died a couple times, but
Yeah. I'm thinking frostbite in a snowstorm, right?
yeah,
On
he
a
was
bike.
full. He's a skier, so he was all, decked out, goggles, and
So it was nothing. It was like sitting in
Yeah.
the chairlift.
and he's from Idaho, so that's just another day,
another day.
northern
Yeah.
Idaho.
Crazy stuff once again happening in the Catskills, but thank God it's not ankle injuries every 5 seconds like there is up in the Adirondacks. So, one thing I wanted to talk about was there was an 89-year-old hiker that survived in the Idaho wilderness for 10 days. So this was a little while ago. It was August 15th. So we're talking
I'm
about
assuming
5
that's
days.
him. That's not like a stock photo of a hiker.
Yeah.
It's gotta be him.
That's that guy, 89.
Yeah.
That's actually an AI rendition of me, with 20 plus years on my age. That's what I'm going to look like. But
Yeah.
when I'm 89
Yeah.
and I set off for a 5-day hike in the woods and I don't come back, don't come out looking for me. Okay.
Yeah. So, equipped with only 19 pounds of gear, 89-year-old Bing Album set off what he intended to be a 5-day hiking trip. So 19 pounds, ultra lightweight for this guy for 89-year-olds. That's pretty crazy. So instead, he found himself stranded for 10 days over 4 million acres of the Salmon Chalias National Forest.
Wow.
It's home to some of most of the rugged places in the country, besides Alaska, according to local search and rescue. Some of the peaks over 8,000 feet, 20 miles traversing the alpine forest. So a lot of the time, they said that they traveled by horseback, helicopter, and drones looking for this guy. He was missing on August 6th, and they began rescuing him the day of. By land and air, ground teams searched the forest for acres, lasering on possible trails in which could be found. Drones were flying over looking for heat infrared. Idaho National Guard had a private pilot led their helicopters to search. They could not come up with anything, had zero traces for him for 5 days. And local residents from the Custer County surrounding area came in together and joined in. And they are a very small community. They usually stay off the mountain because of just the way that they are, the older generation. But they came together in this instance and went out, looked for him. Obum's daughter, Jennifer Obum, posted his photo on a Facebook Thursday asking for information for the hikers in the area. For 2 days, search and rescue has been unable to locate him, which tells me he's hurt or in worse conditions. 2 days after that, on the final evening of the search, when they were going to call everything off, a group of local rescuers discovered Obum's camp, according to the sheriff's office. Now, after searching for Obum in the surrounding areas, local residents on horseback found him safe in the early mornings on August 11th. So 6 days later, basically, he found him virtually unscathed and was only a mild dehydrated and sore from the sheer distance he had traveled on foot. Now, once again, they didn't have much with the family or Obum, but just a phenomenal time, saying that he just had a few supplies, 5 days worth of food, stretching out for that far is absolutely phenomenal. They dealt with Air Force rescue and Coast Guard rescue and such. So once again, an amazing time that you can think that you're out there and you're gone, but you survive basically on water. Like what's the thing? You can survive 3 weeks on water, right?
Well, I guess it depends on a lot of factors like the heat, the humidity, how long you can go without food and hydration. But one of the many things I found interesting about this story is when he set out on this trip, and maybe one of the reasons why his pack weight was only 19 pounds. Do you know what he was eating, Stosh, the whole trip? You know what his food supply was?
I'm not sure.
Look at the highlight when you go to.
I was gonna say what it was just to make you feel good.
Beef jerky and salted nuts. That's it. That's all this guy was eating. So maybe that's like the key to longevity. What do you think, Joe? Beef
Maybe
jerky.
He was
and
able
salted.
to create some kind of pemmican out of the nuts and jerky. Found some edible. I mean, it's summertime, right? So he found some edible berries, pounded it all together, and it could be, Fountain of Youth.
Could be.
Right. 89 freaking years old.
Yeah.
I mean, a younger person probably couldn't have survived that. So, I mean, he's
not all. They would have been crying on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah. He's Bing is a legend. 89-year-old legend. Bing.
I'm saying we have to hear from the man himself, I think.
Yeah. We should get him on the show.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the Catskills in New York State, but
yeah, but it's
Mountain
interesting.
Lions.
What do you think, Joe?
So,
do you think we should get him on the show?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did he deal with mountain lions out there in Idaho?
Oh yeah, there's definitely mountain lions.
What brand of beef jerkies? You just bring one flavor or different flavors?
Yeah. Was it just the standard? What's that brand they have in all the gas stations?
Slim Jim. Jim.
That's the original.
Right? Yeah, the original beef jerky. Is
he's old school? So
yeah, is it the original
the
or
maximum
spicy?
Sodium content? That was what did it.
Yeah, with the salted nuts, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. And then he brought iodine to purify the water.
And we were watching Idiocracy. We were laughing about electrolytes, but guess what?
Yeah,
you start hiking like these things.
Where did he get that name though?
I don't know where he got his name, presumably his parents, but now we know where Microsoft got the name for its search engine.
Right? That's what I was thinking. I'm just like, how did this guy get the name Bing?
Yeah, he could be like a multimillionaire if he sued them for some type of copyright infringement.
His cousin Google is like a billionaire.
Yeah, right.
And it's in the genes. It's in the genes.
Mildly
Bing
dehydrated.
Jerky. Yeah. Well, and after eating all that beef jerky and salted nuts, I'd be too.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you said something, Tad.
Oh yeah. So Bing is missing for 10 days, and he's got like this big search party out for him. And one of the things I don't think it's getting the headlines that it deserves is for the past 8 weeks, there's been 2 astronauts stranded in the International Space Station. because the Boeing Starliner that took them to the space station apparently is too broken to get them back. So they're waiting until early September when one of Elon Musk's vehicles will be in the area.
His Cybertruck.
Yeah, swing by and give them an Uber lift home.
Almost like East Hurley.
Yeah, crazy, right? Yeah, I hope they have their DEC fishing passes with them.
Good
We're up here
Lord.
fishing for asteroids.
Yeah, the DEC will pick you up if you don't have a fishing license because they'll arrest you if you're in outer space.
But you can print, we now know that you can print out a DEC fishing license no matter where you are.
Right?
You remember that from last week, Joe?
Joe didn't listen to that.
The week before was, I didn't
What?
listen.
Huh? All right, let's just.
The time before, though, they caught the thief, right?
Yeah.
The DEC caught that.
All right, but Joe, this is an abrupt end to your appearance tonight.
Hold on. You didn't hear that. I don't know.
I heard that.
Trapdoor.
Good. So unbelievable. Once again, that guy survived in 10 days, and then there are people calling in the Adirondacks when they have a cramp up on halfway up Mount Marcy to get a helicopter freaking rescue. God, I seriously don't know. I'm glad I don't go to Adirondacks. I couldn't take that shit. I'm sorry.
It can get very annoying. I turned around on Algonquin Trail, and I was put it in my stories on Instagram. I never did a post on it, but because it was just kind of like too many, just the amount of people right at the end of winter, and they were specifically saying like, because we had such a warm winter, we're sort of into that shoulder season already, so like be careful where you hike. I specifically picked a trail that was pretty rocky. I didn't really have to worry about eroding more of the sort of organic matter. But I mean, they were like literally going to be 300 people on the top.
Wow.
Based on the groups I was counting. And then I found out that it was some kind of a meetup, and they pretended specifically to be in separate groups, apparently, from what I could ascertain. And I want no part of this. I turned right around.
Good for
actually
you.
call the Rangers.
Yes, because that's like the DEC guidelines is what, like 10 to 12 people, right? Or 15.
Something like that, like 10 to 12. I think it's
wow.
15. But yeah, and this woman was like, yeah, we're a big group, but we separate into, I'm like, that's not, it's kind of against the spirit of what they're trying to do. That
Hudson Valley Hikers or Rip Van Winkle Hikers or whatever what's that other group called? Tad? I forgot.
I don't know, and I'm not ratting out anybody. Bum's the word, man. I hike. Yeah. I do too much solo hiking. I come across people on the trail all the time. I'm outnumbered. So
yeah.
They could take me out.
Pretty much hike solo too. Yeah. So I try not to. Don't want to offend because I don't know when I'm going to have to rely on some random person.
So we're talking about the Adirondacks. Unfortunately, the story is once again that these places are become overpopulated, overused, and such like that. And one of these places, of course, is Old Forge. I've always thought that for like 20 years that this place is just going out of control. And
that's not far from you, right? That's fairly close to.
It's like an hour and a half hour, like an hour and 45 minutes. So it's in there. The people think it's the Adirondacks, but it's not. It's a southern Adirondacks, very, very southern tip. This is like the southern tip, but 3 black bears had to be put down due to there's a female bear and her 2 cubs. Well, I just I wish I had something to say, but it's absolutely insane. It's just,
and the same thing happened 2 years ago. They had put down a mother and 1 cub.
Yep, in Old Forge too.
Same issue. Yeah, feeding bears. I don't know. I've had coworkers tell me things like that, and I'm like, do not tell me these things. I do not want to. I'm gonna, it's like that's exactly how a bear gets aggressive.
Yeah,
that's why they have to put them down. It's
why is it that they can't be relocated to a more remote area?
I was wondering in 2 million acres of forest that they can't be
I mean, is it
relocated.
they feel that these bears have become so domesticated and dependent on suburban food that they wouldn't survive, that they would suffer in a more remote and wild area, or that they would just return? Because to a bear, what's 100 miles?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think 100 miles is a freaking significant difference if you relocate them above the high peak, especially from Old Forge. Old Forge, you go all the way above the high peaks, you're in absolute wilderness.
Yeah.
And I mean, with the DEC, of course, you can go to you can think of the most remote goddamn places that these people have been to.
Yeah,
And
that's true. The other
relocate
cases
them.
I've read about, they do normally try to relocate them,
Mhm.
not just once, but several times. I wonder why,
Yeah.
unless they just left that part out of the story.
I
No,
mean,
they make it sound like the ranger, I'm going to call it a snap decision, decided that these bears were too aggressive and they needed to be, I can't even say euthanized because that wouldn't be appropriate, that they were killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Destroyed, I think, is the term they use.
yeah.
Crazy.
It's just, and of course, this is once again goes with the principles of education that
Yeah.
we need to educate people how to store their food and such, that people just leave it outside of their tent or even leave it in their tent at these places.
Or they just try to walk up to the bear and offer it to the bear to get
Yeah.
a photo. Okay.
A fucking photo. It kills me. It kills me that this stuff happens. And in the Catskills, every time that I've come upon a bear, that bear has looked at me for a split second and run off, is scared shitless. But up in the Adirondacks, it seems like they're like, "Oh, you're a human. Let me get some food from you, bro."
Yeah,
Like,
the bears there are known for being very smart,
yeah.
very
All right.
clever.
All right.
Able
Well,
to take
stop it,
down-
Joe. Are you saying the bears in the Catskills are intellectually challenged? Is that what I just heard, Joe? I mean, earlier you told us you didn't listen to last week's show. Okay, so you obviously lied on your guest application to get on tonight. And now you're trash talking our beloved bears in the Catskills. All right, we can move along.
I love the fact that I can bring a lighter bear can into the Catskills. Actually, I mean, I have never ran into any bears anywhere. A lot of
Nice.
sign. I've run into a lot more bear sign in the Catskills.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently they're supposed very timid which I guess is why I've never seen them, because
Oh yeah.
this point I've hiked pretty extensively in the Catskills. And
No, I've seen them run across the road. I've had one of them up on Poach Ledge that I've met that just kind of like grazed at me and sprinted off. And then one on Plateau Mountain that saw me crossing the trails and freaking like ran into a tree. And I was just like, I felt so bad. I'm like, oh my God, let me help you. And then I'm like, oh shit, that thing could kill me. Never mind.
yeah, I got some cool photos of some paw prints, paw tracks in the winter. They looked really cool. But yeah, no actual bear there. That was when the person was supposedly was it the Kit Kat bars in the canisters?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
remember that.
Past winter. Yeah, that was apparently a thing where I was told that
Bless America.
pretty reliable source that when I was on I guess it was Friday, and the cap was off. This person who's in a position to know thinks that a bear had taken the top off the canister looking for a Kit Kat bar.
Wow. Yeah. God bless America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like these people are like the Russian people who like want to interact with bear and want to wrestle bears and just like, hey, you know what? You want to fight me? Go ahead. Let's fight, bear.
Yeah, I was just thinking of those videos that they play usually, from that part of the world. And it's,
let me take you on.
If you look at the comments too, it's like 100, like, that's awesome. And then like one person, like the voice of reason being like, this is probably not something we should try to, promote.
Encourage. Yeah.
Like hugging and kissing and, feeding bears with your hands. And
yeah. So we'll go back to your comment. Maybe Joe, the hikers aren't as smart as the bears, right?
Where is that?
Oh, Adirondacks.
Yeah.
The Adirondacks.
I'm going to say a multitude of places.
There's a lot of. I feel like the Catskills, it's not that the hikers in other places aren't friendly, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm from sort of that part of the state that I feel almost like at home when I'm in the Catskills, but I feel like I just make connections with people. Like I
Right?
had some guy that I gave me a ride because I didn't want to go the steep side back down North Dome. I met him on Cheryl, him and his friend, and then they gave me a ride in my car all the way to Spruceton. And then I met him the day I finished on Slide Mountain.
Oh, wow.
And he was like 2 away from finishing his 35.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah.
What was the fellow's name?
I'm trying to remember. I cannot recall. I have it written down somewhere.
We'll just delete this segment here.
Not at all. That's phenomenal.
That's happened a lot of times.
Yeah.
Another time, this couple from Connecticut gave me a ride home because we were on the top of Hunter. It was the same day I met Tad, actually. And I was enjoying the sort of pre-sundown. And then I'm thinking, like, my car is all the way down, what is that, like 3 miles?
Yeah, it's like 3.5 miles.
Yeah, they were parked by Becker Hollow. So they were like, just come down with us. And, little did they know that, they're parked in like the town of Hunter. And that's like 45 minutes.
That's a long haul.
All the way around this huge mountain. Yeah. But then we wound up going out to that pizza place in Phoenicia.
Rios.
Yeah. Yeah, we all went to dinner. So that was another, like, cool. I've never randomly met somebody in the Adirondacks and like went to dinner with them. That's happened in the Catskills,
It's I don't know, the Catskills have a different vibe.
Yeah. It's a very, I don't know if it's the Woodstock sort of connection, but I feel like it's very summer of love out there. People are
Joe, summer of love. Yeah. Liking this.
I mean, not in that way, but maybe for some people.
Yeah. But, so did you guys see the aurora that happened?
That's after my bedtime.
Always exactly same.
Yeah. And you had said it was like 4 a.m. You saw something, right?
Dude, I know I don't want to say that I saw it. I went out there and I looked for the Perseids. I took a picture and I saw a little bit of green in my photos, but I didn't know if it was just because of my cell phone or such. But the photos show a little green, but I saw at least 10 to 12 Perseids in a matter of 12 minutes. It was beautiful. It was absolutely phenomenal. But this occurrence that keeps happening, we keep seeing aurora more this year than we have seen in the past 12 to 15 years. And it's just absolutely phenomenal. And I don't know, is this going to happen more often, do you think?
Yes. I read an article recently. It's the beginning of the end times, Stosh. Yeah. Our days on this planet are numbered. So I'm going to be taking the Boeing Starliner to the space station.
It's not the way to think of it, buddy. Come on. Think of it that you're seeing the aurora, man. You don't have to go all the way to Canada or Iceland or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is. And people up north.
Yeah, this place is a fascinating planet.
It is. Right? And, we kind of live in that awesome area of New York State where we're dipped so low to where it hits us at decent times. And then, once in a great while, we'll get an eclipse that kills the economy and stuff like that. And everybody's overloading the internet and stuff. But I thought that was pretty cool. And it would be cool to chat about this really quick. Is this going to happen more often? Sure, it will. We'll get some really cool solar flares that's going to hit, Mother Earth and then project it beyond Calgary and onto us that we get very rarely. And, this is one of my bucket lists is to go up into, the Canadian Rockies, Iceland or stuff and see this right above me. That's just the waves that you see on bucket list thing,
I feel like in these drier areas, you're going to see them better, obviously, because it's so overcast here. So much of the time.
Tad, that's on your bucket list. Do you have you said your bucket list is like nothing.
I did my stuff when I was younger. Now I live vicariously through my 2 daughters in this podcast.
Ridiculous.
And Joe's Instagram stories. That's it.
Right?
My wife and I get a fresh beverage. We sit down Sunday night, pull out the tablet, queue up Joe's feed, and just sit there. Right. It takes about 20 minutes to go through one of his storyboards, maybe 25.
I spend a lot more time on the stories now than I do on the actual posts. It's kind of funny because I have a core group of like 10 people, 5 to 10 people that like follow it pretty regularly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, you know what, let me just because I'm very lazy when it comes to editing. That's why I don't have a YouTube channel. So I'm just like, let me do this cinematic experience, take the Great American Songbook and put it to all this beautiful scenery. And it's sort of this meditative, like today I was just posting just like the sound of water, crashing against.
I did that a couple of weeks ago when I went up to Catterskill Falls.
Yeah,
that's the hike Stosh wanted to talk about. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool hike.
Nice. Yeah. So Ted, you want to talk about the rattlesnakes?
Yeah, let's rattle on to the rattlesnake story.
I wish I had a rattle.
A
Morocco.
I know, right?
We'll just dub one in.
So go ahead.
Oh, me? Oh, you want me to talk about the rattlesnakes? Jeez. All right. Yeah. Rattlesnakes moving further and further away from the Hudson Valley. Over the last few weeks, Environmental Conservation Police Officer Osborne, who is a member of the DEC Division of Law Enforcement Wildlife Response Team, responded to 6 separate rattlesnake complaints, 5 of which were at the same Delaware County residence. How'd you like to live there, Joe?
Something about Delaware County. I don't know.
Delaware County.
Copperheads now in Staten Island. People are taking on my Facebook, all my family down in the New York City area. They're being plagued by
copperheads.
Which apparently was a thing here in Rochester 20 years ago. Anyone that had a pool, they would find copperheads in it. But now, maybe because the bald eagles.
That's interesting. Yeah, but apparently in Delaware County, there is a rattlesnake problem. Mainly at this one house in Delaware County. So on July 22nd, a town of Hancock resident reported a timber rattlesnake near the front entrance of his home. The officer responded and safely removed and relocated the snake. Then on the 29th of July, August 5th, and August 11th, Osborne responded to the same residence for more rattlesnakes, including a possible mating pair. What does that mean, mating pair? Like they matched? They were a matching pair. Joe, do you know what that means? Mating pair of rattlesnakes? I don't have a clue.
Don't they usually do like a snake ball?
Yes, a snake ball. I stepped in one last year.
Yeah, when I first moved up here, that was one of the first things I saw when I started hiking.
Yeah, really?
Nice.
Yeah.
This is one of the things I'm going to see. Is this like an omen?
Yeah. Hopefully you had like high boots and gaiters on, right? And you stepped
it was this really wide, basically a road style trail.
Yeah, so I stepped into a snake ball when I was out in the Western Catskills hiking through one of those. Yes, it was one of these groves of ferns that's as high as your shoulders, right? And so as you're going through the ferns, you're like parting them, like you're like in the Amazon forest or in Vietnam. And so as you're parting them and you put your foot down, and it feels different than the earth when you put your foot down. So what do? You look down, you see what your foot is in.
What type of snakes?
Oh, they were just like black snakes.
Like
nice.
It was freaky. Snakes. It was freaky. So the rest of the day, every time I came up to one of these fern groves, I'd bushwhack around it because I just couldn't do that again. No. All right. So Officer Osborne on the snake responding team, he's gone to this house now 4 times to safely remove the snake and relocate it back into the wild. So here we learn that if you're a snake going to the same house in Delaware County, the DEC is going to remove and relocate you no matter how many times you come back. But if you're a bear up in Old Forge, you're going to be destroyed. So the public is reminded to leave snakes alone, observe snakes from a safe distance, and call the DEC's Division of Fish and Wildlife for assistance with removal. I'm going to turn it back over to Stosh.
Yeah.
You with us, buddy?
I'm with you.
All right.
You know, it flabbergasts me how much these snakes are migrated. Sort of like I don't know why west, because I think more of west is along the Delaware River area, so it's a little bit more rocky. So they're following more the rocky areas among the Captain, such like that, and they're not going up north towards Albany and stuff like that we've heard of yet. So,
yeah, well, in Albany, you have Thatcher Park. You have a lot of rocky areas
I know
up there.
Lake George, there's a lot of.
Yeah, yeah. There's, look, there's snakes all over the place. We down here in the Gunks, we have rattlesnakes, timber rattlers.
Yeah, I remember when I lived in New Paltz, they would say if you go up on the Shawagunk Ridge, you be careful if you're going out and doing this sort of Buddhist, meditation thing up on the cliffs. Like there's
Joe, we don't tell people about that. Yeah. But yeah, I've been on many a hike out here where you'll hear them. And yeah, one time I was hiking through a gully. It was no wider than 10 feet, and probably with the rattler was off to one side, but not completely off to one side. I mean, you had to walk within 3 feet of them to get by.
Wow.
But no way. It was the only way to get through. I wasn't turning back. I had come too far. So
wow. I've experienced
Final boss.
Bears and wild boars more than I have experienced rattlesnakes here in New York State.
Wild boars?
Yeah.
Really?
Over in Arizona. When I lived out there.
Arizona, okay.
Yeah, that's a good point to say. Yeah.
I'll say this: we're so fortunate in the Catskills, because I couldn't imagine being out in the wild and having a wild boar running towards me. Okay.
Oh, dude, this was a pack of like 4 or 5. This was a mother and their kids, and it was just insane.
Crazy.
I wonder if moose are ever going to migrate down into.
That's what I want to know. Let's get them freaking down the Catskills.
Well, we know why they won't. Okay, Joe. Right? We know why the moose aren't coming down to the Catskills, and that's because
I know where this is going. Mountain lions.
It's the mountain lion situation. Okay, we all know that. You were the first to bring this up tonight, Joe. So don't get me started. We're digging up data, and actually, we have some interesting things that we're going to start reporting tonight about mountain lions.
Are we?
Yeah, you didn't see it. I put it in the notes, Dosh. It's further down.
Hey, we'll talk about that later.
Okay, but later.
Joe,
stay tuned.
Joe, thank you for shooting the shit. Tad, thank you for shooting the shit. Really appreciate it. Breaks the ice. It really does. I listened to some previous episodes, and a lot of people were a little tense when they started up, but then when we shoot the shit, they were like, oh, this is awesome. So once again, thank you to the monthly supporter, Darren, Vicky, Betsy, Denise, Vanessa, Joseph, Jim C, Michael, and David. Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate you supporting the show. Once again, you're not supporting the show, you're supporting the Catskills as well. Also, thank you to Molly from Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Molly from Outdoor Chronicles Photography specializes in adventure couple photography, and she'll immortalize your moments amidst the stunning landscapes of the Catskills, Adirondacks, and White Mountains. She'll craft timeless images and reflect your unique bond in nature's grandeur. Embark on unforgettable photographic journey with Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Don't hesitate to get a hold of Molly on all platforms. Outdoor Chronicle Photography. Awesome stuff. Also, discover the wilderness with Trailbound Project. Our expert-led hiking and backpacking education programs offer unparalleled outdoor experiences. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned adventurer, join us to learn essential skills, explore stunning trails, and connect with nature. Start with your journey today with the Trailbound Project and unlock wonders of the great outdoors. They'll be assisting as well with the Catskill Mountain Search and Rescue Team for the Wilderness First Aid. So check them out. So I wanted to bring up coffees and mentions. I wanted to bring up Yana for doing her All Trails Challenge finished. Congratulations, Yana. I don't know if she still listens to the podcast anymore, but Yana was a big influence on my Catskill 3500 Club stuff. And she used to do the Catskill 3500 Club canister, which she did an amazing job on it as well. And me and Yana are really good friends. We still keep in touch with each other. And congratulations, Yana, for your All Trail Challenge. You know, we're going to be talking with Sarah in a couple weeks about this, and it's a big deal. It's an awesome deal. Tad, you're working on that as well, right?
Closing in on the end. I can almost see
how
it.
much? Come on.
I have not actually gone through the list and scratched off trails on the list. I'm just going by my tracks on my phone.
Percentage wise.
Every time I say I'm like at 85%, then I scan around and I'm like, oh, there's another trail. But I'm getting so close. I just this past weekend, I cleaned up all of the loose ends in the north-south lake escarpment area. And I'm moving on. I'm moving out of there.
Thank God.
I can see that I'm getting to the point where I just got what I call the orphans to go around and pick up things that were left behind.
What are they called? Like the spurs and stuff like that?
Yeah, spurs. And like, sometimes you get these trails that like they branch off to the left, the right, the north, the south, or whatever, and then they merge up again. And so sometimes I've blown off one segment of those alternate trails. And so like this weekend, I was over North South Lake and knocked off.
We'll chat about that.
Yeah. All right. We'll move down the list.
Joe, did you have a question? You had your mouth open.
I was just going to ask if the maintenance of those trails in the summertime, these less popular, less used trails, is that an issue with the prickers and
Yeah.
So
that's in part that snakeball story with all these fern groves. You sometimes
is that actually on trail? That wasn't a bushwhack.
Oh yeah. No, that was allegedly on trail. Okay.
Allegedly, yep, on trail, but bushwhack totally.
Yeah, sometimes you'd rather be bushwhacking between Lone and Rocky than on these trails, alleged trails.
There's no herd bat.
Yeah. That's nothing.
Especially in sunnier areas down at the bottomlands. That's where that's where those weeds are going to just pop up. I got all these sticky burrs on my socks. We
saw that your
Sunday.
Blue socks.
Yeah, like navy blue slate. I think they're. But yeah, I think they're mildly irritating. I don't even know what that plant is called, but it's all over the Finger Lakes. When I first started training in Letchworth State Park, doing sections of the FLT, when I did my first backpacking trip, that I would wind up, and this is when I was still wearing some cotton, and I had a cotton shirt ruined by those sticky burrs. You cannot get them out.
Wow. Oh, nice.
For some reason. Yeah.
That was like the times of when we were kids and we went into those burdocks and stuff like that. You came home and you just took your shirt off and your mom was just like, what the hell did you do? Sorry, Mom, they're burdocks.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn, so we had nothing like that.
Yeah,
I was maybe walking by the beach or something and like some, what we call the weeds. It was really just like weed plants, not really much in the way of anything but a sticky burr.
Yeah. So once again, support the podcast by buying us a coffee. Also, if you mentioned the podcast on one of your hikes, we'll talk about you on the show and we'll give you a big shout out. So Joe, I saw you just chugging something. What are you having?
This is just water, but it has all my my challenge stickers from the different challenges.
Jesus.
Show us the sticker from the podcast on there, Joe.
Oh,
I do have that.
Joe,
I do have that on a Nalgene that's downstairs in the kitchen.
Okay.
At least that's good.
I know that you do this segment on the show, so I had to see what I had liquor wise around the house.
And the best you could do is water.
A little.
Oh, okay.
Little thing of bourbon.
Nice.
103 proof Fighting Cock bourbon.
What'd you say?
103 proof.
What was it? Fighting Cock?
Fighting Cock. It's a great value. Yeah, it's like one of the less expensive bourbons. It's really high proof and for some reason does not smell really like ethanol. So
Did you say Fighting Cock?
Fighting Cock. Yeah, let me get the
Nice. I like that name of that.
Great. I wish they came out with stickers or something. It's got that
right
retro,
I like it. Dude, that's awesome. I love when people come out with new stuff. Tad's got some copy.
Yeah.
Stewart's.
But I'm looking
That's what
up
happened
fighting
to me.
cock. I'm looking up fighting cock, and the first thing that comes up is a podcast that's been on for 10 years.
Yeah.
Just the one bird, one microphone.
Yeah.
Fights
Yeah.
himself.
There you go.
Whatever. All right. So previous hikes, Joe, let's go with you first, buddy. What did
Yes,
you
sir.
do the previous weekend?
So I'm training for the Adirondacks, and now, like we were talking before, I'm training for a big trip I have coming up next year, which you have to pretty much train the whole year for. So I want to do two kind of harder hikes. I was in High Tor Wildlife Management Area on Saturday. That's basically the closest thing to a mountain within an hour of Rochester. I have a few other select places I like to train in. Then Sunday, another place I, kind of openly is more known, like High Tor is, that I can talk about, is Hemlock Lake and Cannon Ice Lake. It's called Rob's Trail. So basically, Hemlock and Cannon Ice Lakes are two of the Western Finger Lakes, two of the smaller ones. They're right across the road from each other. If you go down to the bottom of the gorge on each one and you do that twice, you can break 3,000 feet of elevation gain, which has pretty much been my goal for training on these local trails.
What are you training for again?
I'm going to the Adirondacks this weekend, and then next year I actually just put down a deposit on a trip through the High Sierra, 8-day backpacking trip, to eventually summit Mount Whitney on the
Nice.
Cool.
which is the big one. Yeah.
Does that give you a guaranteed permit to hike Whitney?
Yes, and they also have their own exclusive route that they come in from. It's like a longer, less steep way coming from the northwest.
Right. So the next question is, you paid money, they have their own route, you get a permit. So now I'm thinking, what, you get a couple of Sherpas with this too? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that'd be nice. I used to joke around when I first started shooting stupid videos of myself hiking. I used to speak in this haughty British accent, yelling like Sherpa, Sherpa, like where are you? I was going up like Porter and Cascade but yeah, that would be pretty sweet. But at the same time, I would never really touch one of those places.
Right.
Where, I hear you talk about that a lot, Stash, and I think the hike to like something like Everest would be probably more interesting than going up Everest.
Yep.
But you're doing Whitney 8 days, so that sounds like an epic
It's going to be
backpacking
similar.
journey.
Yeah, because you're going to start, instead of hiking through the high desert the entire hike, it's going to start in lush temperate rainforests for the first 2 days. And then you're going to slowly acclimatize, going up and down these different, crossing these different rivers, valleys, gorges, and then eventually getting to Whitney on, I think, day 7. We're going to camp, I think, the end of day 6 near Whitney, and then with packs, actually summit without packs. We also have the option of camping on the top of Whitney if we want to, if the weather's right.
Wow.
Which would be pretty cool in August.
Yeah. Oh.
Less cool in December, but.
So Joe, you got to come back on the show after this epic excursion.
Yeah. Definitely.
Hell yeah, dude.
I do have to say, I have to shout out Mike Radomski out of Buffalo. I'm doing it. He's partnering with a guiding company in California. And so it's going to be a group of people from Western New York, mostly from Buffalo, going on this trip.
You want to mention what was this thing again? This is
Mike
a little
Radomski, he
controversial.
goes by Outside Chronicles.
Is it outside or outdoor?
Yeah, I was going to say, when I first started listening to you, I thought he was one of your sponsors because it sounds so similar to Outdoor Chronicles. But yeah, he goes by Outside Chronicles. He is, I've taken a lot of classes with him. He was one of the people I shouted out when I did my 35 along with Tad. He gave me a lot of crucial advice early on. Took my, map and compass with him, Knott's class, and it's really made a difference. And, I'm actually going with him, going on a group trip with him in 3 weeks to the Dix Range.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah. I'm working on the Sewards. Actually, that's what I'm going to do this weekend. I want to finish up the Sewards. I just have Seward Mountain left.
Fucking mud central, dude.
Yeah, it was, yeah, going up. I think I'm actually going to do Calkins Brook because Blueberry, I don't know. I just had like images of me like breaking my leg on this one part where you're approaching. Actually,
Yep.
I started at the very end of this last trip I did where I went from New Hampshire all the way, through Vermont, Adirondacks. And it was like my last day of that trip. And I realized I was a few miles in. I had been camping for a week and I did not change the batteries on my headlamp. And the last time I did Donaldson and Emmons, I got back to the car at midnight. So I'm like, this will not. Now I do have a spare headlamp, but it's not as good. And I had these images of me like trying to change my batteries in the dark to switch out from the crappy headlamp to the better headlamp, which is probably, and when I got back, it was very dim. I would have probably had maybe an hour of light at most. And,
Wow.
Emergency, I still had the other one, but it's not really as good.
But Joe, don't you have a smartphone with a flashlight on it?
Yeah.
Boom.
So
and
there
then you
go.
could call
Yeah.
SOS, call freaking Adirondack Search and Rescue, and they'll come and freaking hoist you out.
New York State Rangers.
Yeah. They'll bring you some AA or AAAs. You'll be all set.
If I ever do need the help of the Rangers, I will never tell them I was on this podcast, by the way, because
perfect.
The DEC, they're trying to take over the podcast.
Yeah.
Game.
They've already done that.
Yeah. You're
They've already got so many stars. Once again, as Joe mentions that, once again, do 5 stars. 2 stars, apparently. So, Joe, sounds awesome. I've been to High Tor area, and Italy Hill is where I went over. I went over Conklin's Gully, Italy Hill, then back up and down.
Yeah, I don't think you can even do Italy Hill anymore. I think the private land issues across the road. Yeah, I think they're trying to do a reroute now because there's a bunch of new trail.
That goes right by. I know it's a winery that we got from free wine right there. It's Hazlitt, I think.
Maybe it's the other side that you're talking about, but from my understanding, did you cross like Brink Hill Road coming off of High Tor?
We did, because that's where our friend kind of like met us. Yeah, we met us at the top of Conklin Gully.
Issues. I don't know if they were maybe doing some logging over there, but it was access was shut off, and now in general, I think the Bristol Hills does have a lot of issues both with trail maintenance and with private land.
Dude, I gotta admit that was an excellent. To be honest, this was my first backpacking trip. The first time I've done some backpacking. So we went up Conklin Gully. We hit High Tor Management Area, hit Italy Hill. Beautiful bushwhacking experience because it wasn't well, all the goldenrods were sitting out, and we were getting stung by bees every 5 seconds. So
that happened to me in the Whites. I got stung by something.
Yeah.
Actually, that happened twice on that trip.
Oh, wow.
At one point, like when I was going up Madison, I went up the Daniel Webster Scout Trail. And when I got to the ridge, my ear is like twice the size. And I'm like, oh man. Also, it was like 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at like heat waves coming off the rocks. It was like vultures circling around. It was insane. That trail.
We kept hydrated.
Yeah. 2,000 feet in a mile.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. I actually like that stuff. So I like that's
vertical elevation. Madness.
Vertical madness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're that high up above tree line on such a steep section, it's very strange.
You kind of expect you expect it though.
Yeah.
And speaking of vertical madness, one of the guys that contacted me through my not Instagram, but my email, Conan York, said that he loved the vertical madness term and that he's going to use it every time when he goes up.
Was that you coined that term, vertical madness?
Well, Alex, one of the guys I had on my podcast, Alex, I work with him, and he seriously said it like 5 times today when we did some disc golfing up on Bel Air Ski Center, which wasn't even vertical madness, but he said this is vertical madness when we went up 10, 15 feet.
Ski slopes kind of are,
We didn't even go up 10, 15 feet, but he's an awesome guy. So recently, I don't know if I mentioned this before, Tad, but I went up Bradley Mountain again. I don't know why I have limited amount of times on my days off on Tuesdays, but I have limited amount of time because I'm getting dental work done. So we went up, me and my friend John went up Bramley Mountain. I took him up. He's a slow guy. I try to make it a fast time, but he makes it slow. But the cool thing is when we came up to the crest, up to the top, he saw the view and was just flabbergasted by the view overlooking the southern Catskills. Could see everything. Absolutely phenomenal. Mount Pisgah, Slide Mountain, Balsam, Double Top Graham. He was blown away, and it was awesome. And also, this what was it? Thursday? This last Thursday, I signed up for a backcountry preparedness kind of like presentation up at the Rogers Center in I was right outside of Norwich, Edmonston, and Ranger Burkholder held it together, and he actually was looking to get some a little advanced knowledge from me from my search and rescue times, and I gave a little bit. He had everything smacked down. The Rangers are crazy with their stuff, and they're really good. They go lightweight totally, and it was really cool to see some of the stuff he carries and stuff. You know what, the funny thing I found out with the Rangers is that they just switched over to moisture wicking stuff after
Really?
70 years.
They were wearing cotton and wool up until now. I mean,
I think it was more wool if they were just
okay. Well, that makes sense.
Polyester is what they switched over to.
Is that because the state of New York, like in 1920, bought a surplus of wool Ranger?
You know what? That's why Rangers never seem to have BO. They're all in wool.
Yeah,
Joe, I've never been that up close and personal with the Ranger to know, and we're not going to inquire why you would know.
Yeah, right.
Do or don't have BO, but
what happens in the Catskills,
stays definitely.
Yeah. I mean,
that's why I think you were the one that referred to the Catskills as being the place with the summer of love vibe.
Yeah, well, there was this
So we're piecing this together, folks. This is as Joe drinks some of that. What was that? Cock whiskey?
Fighting cock.
Fighting cock. Yes, it's all coming together. Catskills, the place of love, Rangers, and not having body odor. Okay. All right. Stay tuned. It's getting really juicy.
Yeah,
we're dropping some breadcrumbs here.
All right.
Definitely.
All right.
So there's going to be some Easter eggs opening.
Yeah. So he's really cool on that. And, I threw in my 2 cents. It was just very little stuff of backcountry preparedness that I knew. He said he uses gaiters. I was just like, I don't go with gaiters. I go with shorts and hit nettles and stuff. And people were like, nettles? What are nettles? And I was like, oh man, because this was more up north, they really don't have nettles. So
they're not a thing around here either, thankfully. There's a lot of thorns though.
Thorns are a big deal because of course they harvested the trees up there. Mm-hmm. But nettles are a thing down here, and they had no clue what nettles were. So it was a good time. I gotta admit, it was pretty cool to talk with Ranger Burkholder and just to see, what's going on up in the northern areas, and hopefully we'll connect further in the future, and we'll do some stuff other than that. But
is there a way to identify a nettle versus, because I always see other types of similar.
Sure. So Joe, this is the technique: is you break off the stalk of the nettle at the base where it comes out of the earth, and then you take the stalk of the nettle under your nose to smell it. But you need to get it really close. So you need to rub it underneath your nose as you're gripping the stalk with both hands. So that's how you if you really feel hard. if you can feel the smell, the tingling of the smell, then you know it's a nettle. Okay. That's the only way to be sure. So don't be deceived by fake nettles, Joe. This is what we want you to do. Break them off.
Yeah, it's like I'm seeing American chestnuts and I'm thinking like, oh, this is, but I guess you guys got to taste it or smell it.
Yeah. Nettles, they have that special field. They have that special field of where you can see that this is basically, it's always a rocky, talus, terrain that you can tell where nettles are.
Yeah.
And
very moist.
Which is another reason it's weird you don't see them around here, but
exactly, you guys have rocky terrain up there.
Yeah.
That is, but I have a feeling that there are more trees, like more of the pines and stuff like that up towards the Finger Lakes and stuff that kind of take over the nettles, where they're just in the short amount of soil they have, the nettles thrive.
I always wonder with the pines here, because there's a lot of tree plantations here. I wonder how much of the evergreens are just native. I mean, other than hemlocks, I know eastern hemlocks were pretty ubiquitous through this area for a long time. If you go to, it is I think they pronounce it Bergen Swamp, Bergen. It's this old growth forest just west of Rochester. It's like maybe 20 acres of this, and it's basically all hemlocks and just some birches where hemlocks have died.
Oh, wow.
It's supposedly this 10,000-year-old, more or less undisturbed swamp, which is, I guess, why it was never turned. It's really surrounded by farms on this suburban street.
So they probably tried something. It was an experiment.
Really strange. It's got the same feel as being 3,700 feet, up in the Catskills or the Adirondacks, and you're in this swamp at, almost sea level, probably. It's
oh, wow.
That same feel of it. It's, in some cases more so. It's like walking on this carpeted, almost squishy pillow.
Yeah. Interesting. So Tad, what have you done basically? I remember you said you went to the good old North-South Lake area.
Yeah. So like I said, I went back up there this past weekend. I did have a different hike planned, but the weather forecast kept me from doing that. And I just knocked off some little orphans that I had to take care of. I did bushwhack up to North Mountain. That was probably the best part of the hike. On my way up, it was fairly interesting terrain. And then I hit the juvenile spruce grove from hell, where these small spruce trees that were like from knee high to just above shoulder high, they were just so close and tight together. There was just, I don't even think Jim Booten could have gotten through these. Okay.
Christmas trees, right?
Yeah. They weren't even that big, but they were just so tight and interwoven. If you look at my tracks, you'll see that I got to this one point where I just went in full retreat and doubled around, and I was still hitting them. And I would estimate there was a few hundred yards thick, this small grove. But I made it to the summit of the mighty North Mountain, and then hooked up with the escarpment trail, which is just wonderful, and hiked down to North-South Lake, and then picked up some little stragglers around there. Afterwards, because I'm fascinated now with the rocks and terrain of South Mountain, I read Robert Titus's write-up on that, which is quite revealing for why it's there and why those rocks are the way they are. So it was fun.
So what else happened? You
sent
me some videos, buddy.
Yeah,
Come on.
Which you didn't post.
The drama.
So here I am. I parked at the Shutt Road parking area. I got there very early, around 7:30, 7:45. I was the third car in the parking lot, and this is the first and only time that I've parked in that parking lot. Every other time I've been to that area, I've hiked in from a lower elevation or bushwhacked in from someplace, whatever. But so I get there, there's only a couple cars there. I go up, I bushwhack North Mountain, I hike down on the trail. I'm passing through the parking lot again. There's a few more cars there. I hang out by my car for a little bit. Then I take off and I do these little spur roads, and I come back at around 1:30, 2 o'clock. And you can't say the parking lot is full, because it's more than full. There's cars parked everywhere. There's cars parked in what used to be like the driving lane. There's cars parked next to cars that are parked into the driving lane. It's gridlock in Manhattan on a work day. Okay. And so, but I get to my Jeep, I change my shoes, I change my shirt, I hop in the Jeep, I grab my key, I put the key in, and I look up. And when I look up, right in front of me, there's a fight. I mean, a shoving match. I won't call it a fight, but people are yelling, people are pushing and shoving one another in a very uncool way. And literally, I mean, it was total chaos. And I'm going to get out and try to do something, but I'm going to call my wife first. So I had a signal. I called my wife, and when I'm on the phone with her, I'm telling, you're laughing, but I'm telling you, and I wish, and I didn't get this on video or recording because I was on the phone, but literally, this woman in a white Audi SUV is driving into the crowd of people, literally making contact with them with her car, pushing them with, yeah, Joe's eyes are getting big because this is what was going. I was like, I couldn't believe what was going on. And they're yelling, they're carrying on, they're like pushing each other. And this woman with the car is driving into the rest of them. And I was astounded.
It really is the end times.
It is.
Yeah.
Right. And so just as I got my wife off the phone and I'm getting ready to hop out of the Jeep, there was like this wave of sanity that came through, and it all settled down, and the people backed off and they realized, whatever. It was just crazy. And this is why I have for the longest time avoided going to that area, because it has such a different vibe when you go through there of just this, gentrified, urbanized, outing. The people that go there, they're just like oblivious to the what should be this like awe and the fascination of where they are. They're just, oblivious to it. They're going there. I saw when I was out hiking near the falls on Sunday, but I didn't go down to the falls on Sunday. I saw, ready for this, Stosh? I got to see your attention. You're not paying attention. I saw two guys, ready? Two guys walking back from the falls with Crocs, bathing suits, and like blow up ducks around their waist.
Okay, that blows up what I've seen after.
All right. I was like, are you kidding me? But that was it. So now that I've checked off those trails, I will not be going back until literally hell freezes over, because that's when I want to go to the falls, when it's like sub-zero, maybe like 8 degrees out.
Absolutely. Best time.
Yeah. I won't see people walking around in swim trunks, Crocs, and
there's nothing cooler than a frozen waterfall.
Yeah.
So where did you have to check out those areas down below the north, like Scott Road area?
I'm going to say it was kind of like to the southeast of there. It was just some random stuff. It was actually,
so I'm going to say it was bridge. Did you have to go over the bridge?
I did that last week.
Okay.
I went there 2 weeks in a row. Last week I hiked up from Palinville and then back down the Harding Trail.
Oh, nice. That's a good one.
Yeah. And like I said, I got an early start from Palinville. I hiked up. I was somewhat oblivious to the parking situation up there and, a lot of the other stuff that goes on. But this weekend,
blows that out of proportion.
Oh yeah. It was just so weird and uncool that, folks go there and they just have no respect for the area that they're in. Yeah. And I just see this as when I was at Catterskill Falls last weekend, I really had this impression that I was going to come around the corner at the bottom of the falls and see a bunch of vending machines lined up there. Okay.
To be honest, I've always wanted to do like a podcast from there to get people to know the podcast, to get people to get education about the podcast. But I don't know how that would do, especially with what you just, what you showed me. It's just, they would either toss the business card or something on the side, and then I'd be charged with,
right.
It's just,
whenever I smell cologne, on a hiking trail. That's a good indication I'm going to have a negative, it just goes
Nice.
along with the Bluetooth speaker,
Yeah. Right. Oh
and the
yeah.
Crocs and the,
Yeah.
you know,
That's like the 11th essential if you're at Catterskill
Cologne.
Falls. Yeah, well, cologne and your Bluetooth speaker.
now that's how you attract mountain lions.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
if
know,
you
that
have the
would-
right scent.
Yeah. 30% of the time it works every time.
Yeah, beef jerky scent is what I use in the wild.
Ron Burgundy. Nice.
Yes.
No, not Ron Burgundy, but nice. So Ted had a wonderful time. It's just, we'll go down to Catterskill Falls during the winter with our freaking 8-point crampons and stuff like that. And
I'm actually thinking about attempting a single season 35er this winter. So
you can do it. It'll be fun.
yeah. Or at least just a winter. Because when I spoke to the table at the meeting, I was like, yeah, I want to do a single season. They're like, well, actually, we don't have a patch for that. But they're like, you can go to Hikers Anonymous. They have a patch. So I'm I guess if I can't do the single season, I could always just do my winter.
Well, don't do it for the patch. Maybe. Don't do it for the patch. Do it for the experience.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's without a doubt. The checklist is just there to have some sort of blueprint.
Yeah.
It's
for organizational purposes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the way I look at it. That's why I'm really taking my time. And the 35er was really just me taking my time, my 46, because I started that first. I didn't put a Cascade before I ever hiked in the Catskills.
Cool. It's awesome. So do it. So also Catskill News, please volunteer, 3500 Club. I'll be doing that this Sunday. Catskill Trail Crew, they've been doing some awesome work. Catskill Mountain Club Visitor Center, Jolly Rover Trail Crew, Brindley Mountain Fire Tower. Also, I saw Toss on some part of the Devil's Path that they were doing some awesome work. So get out there, volunteer. 1 hour a year, 2 hours, 3 or 4 hours can be an awesome time and can be an astronomical help. That was the word I'm looking for to the Catskills and your local area. So also stickers, let me know. All you gotta do is send me an email, look at me up on any social media. And then also, Camp Catskill has some stickers. I got to get new stickers. I just realized I'm almost out of my new stickers. And I was just like, oh shit, this sucks. It's good stuff.
By the way, my permethrin and picaridin that's in my car right now, I bought at Camp Catskill.
Boom.
So, yeah.
Look at that.
I forgot to get a sticker, but I already have a sticker. So
Ryan, you are killing it with supporting this podcast.
Yeah, nice guy. I spoke to him for a while.
God, he's so cool, isn't he?
Yeah.
All right. So weather. Yeah. So Friday, it looks clear. Absolutely stunning. 57, 61 high, down to 55 degrees, maybe no wind at all. Saturday and Sunday looks like a couple rain showers, not even, but a high of 50 or as high of 63, a low of 55. Absolutely stunning to get out and hike those mountains, clean up on the trail, do some trail time. God, I had some Catskill Mountain history, but we're like, I don't even know how freaking long we're in this. We got to be like an hour and 20 minutes into this.
Yeah.
You know what?
So you're blowing over the ML report. You did the weather forecast. The ML report is, folks, now where Stosh is doing his weather forecast, which is forward looking. The ML report.
What is that?
Is ML is for the mountain lions. So if you've seen a mountain lion in the Catskills, report it to me. And
don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. Joe knows he's an experienced hiker. He hikes all over the place. And Joe is telling you as he drinks his 103 proof bourbon, don't sweat it. Just shout it out when you see a mountain lion, and then we'll let people know where they are in the Catskills. So the following weekend, everybody can get out there and take photographs of these mountain lions so we can prove to the DEC that they're actually in the woods out there.
Correct. I've seen hundreds of prints
in the nettle fields waiting for us. Okay, onward.
So, Joe, are you, Tad or Joe, are you skiers?
Yes, I used to be a skier.
Used
No,
to
I've
be.
never. I actually want to. One of the things I want to do this year is cross country for the first time.
All right, so we are gonna do some Catskill Mountain history with skiing because
All right,
I've
skiing.
been. New York State officially described and designated a forever wild area of 236,000 acres in the Catskill Forest Preserve in 1912. So this encompasses most of high peaks in the area, and usually you can see this on the New York State maps of the blue line. During the 1930s, though, various local groups, ski clubs, and towns and railroads and department stores began to promote skiing in order to increase tourist visits in the winter. Trails were cut for skiing by local citizens by the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, on private land. The first commercial ski area to operate in the Catskills was Simpson's Memorial Slope, also known as the Phoenicia Ski Center. So if you ever go down the Woodland Valley area, you cannot see this because it is overgrown now. It's off to the left, right when you begin in towards the area. And it's actually really cool to look at on the maps because it was the first ski area in 1935 without an uphill lift. So basically, you had to climb up to the top of yourself.
That's going to be a sport. That's going to be an event at the next Winter Olympics, by the way. Ski mountaineering.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So the host country gets to choose a local event, like a local sport as an event, and the Italians apparently chose ski mountaineering. They're apparently the top country.
They will kill it.
Yeah.
So after that, in 1949, Bel Air Ski Center was opened to New York State's first chairlift. Now, I was there today, and it's crazy how they will put in millions and millions of dollars to Bel Air Ski Area, but they won't build a bridge or give us new signs in the Catskills. It kind of flabbergasts me, but there have been over 20 areas operated in various times in the Catskills. As recently as 1999, the Catskill region had 9 ski centers, the big three, Hunter, Bel Air, and Wyndham. But, I want to include Plattekill in there because I got to admit that ski center is freaking one of the most phenomenal ski centers. But this was back then, Little Six, Bobcat Ski Center, which was over in the Mount Pisgah area, Margaretville area. High Mount, which was off to the side of Bel Air. Sawkill, I wasn't really familiar with that. Tad, are you familiar with Sawkill?
No, up until that, I'm familiar and have skied every one you've mentioned, but Sawkill doesn't ring a bell.
What about Cortina?
Yes.
That's over towards the Hunter Tannersville area, right?
Yeah, it's right on the almost on the side of Round Top and Catterskill High Peak.
Yeah. Scotch Valley, which was over in Stanford, and then Plattekill. Only Plattekill remains, which I got to admit, phenomenal ski center. Go there. Yeah. We might be having a conversation with them a little bit later in the future.
Cool.
There's still possibility that high mount terrain, as part of the new real estate development of Bel Air, will come back online. So, So Plattekill has usually 175 inches of snowfall per year. So that remains one of the highest area. Bel Air, 141. Wyndham, 105 inches, and Hunter, which is 85 inches. Vertical drop, it extends as the most snow receives, it actually ascends down. So Plattekill has 1,100 vertical, and then it goes down from Bel Air to Hunter, which is 1,600 vertical. So as we see that these bigger areas receive less snowfall, the smaller areas receive more. So hopefully these smaller areas receive more impact. I don't know about Wyndham. Wyndham's a little private area, so we'll leave that out. But Bel Air is getting a lot of money from the state, but the trails aren't seeing a lot of money, so that's a little disappointing.
Yeah. Well, Wyndham doesn't have to show a profit because it's piggy banked by the state of New York. But just go back to
Is Hunter also owned by the state?
No, Simpson or Hunter used to be owned by the Slutsky family,
Yep.
who were also the folks way back when who cut the slopes at Bear Pen in the 50s. And then they worked out a deal in Hunter Mountain But when you next time you drive into Woodland Valley and you go by Simpson Ski Hill on your left, there's a narrow red building. It's 2 stories. It's an irregular shape at the bottom of that hill. And that's one of the old lift houses that was for either a J bar or a T bar. But you can see some of the old slopes still there are not completely overgrown. But that was quite a popular thing way back when. People would come up from the city on the train and ski at Simpson Hill, stay in Phoenicia and the nearby areas.
Wow. And that's phenomenal. If you got to go super slow to see that, though.
Yeah. Well, how fast should you be going down that road to Woodland Valley?
Good point. Good point. Can't take the Tesla 90 miles an hour down through there. So
you want to get into a shoving match with anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome. Cool stuff. I had a whole thing about the ski area, but unfortunately I didn't have it on the cell phone that I could get it up real quickly. So really quickly. All right, let's go on to the last set of sponsors, and then we'll get on to Joe. Finally, discover Camp Catskill in Tannersville, your ultimate hiking store. Find top quality gear, apparel, and accessories for your outdoor adventures. Our expert staff is here to help every hikers from beginners to seasoned pros. We also carry a variety of unique Catskill souvenir and gifts. Visit us online at campcatskill.com or the store to gear up for your next journey. Adventure starts at Camp Catskill. Joe went there. So, discover beauty in Camp Catskill, Adirondacks, and Hudson Valley with scenic route guiding. Our expert guides and ensure a safe and unforgettable hiking experience tailored to your skill level. From breathtaking vistas to hidden gems, or if you're peak bagging, to just simple day hikes, we'll lead you to the best spots and back. Book your adventure today and explore nature's wonders with scenic route guiding. Check them out on all social media platforms. Also, if you mention the podcast, you can get 10% off and use the amazing code Mountain Lion. Also, definitely embark on your transformative journey with Another Summit. Another Summit is dedicated to serving veterans and first responders for free outdoor activities. Activities like walks in nature, paddling, hiking, or even backpacking. Join our supportive community to rejuvenate in nature's embrace. Experience camaraderie, adventure, and healing at no cost. Take your next step with Another Summit to ascend to new heights of resilience and joy. Apply today at anothersummit.org. So let's get on to the guest of the night.
Let's go.
So tonight we have listener spotlight, Joe T. or Joe Tuso. How do you say it again? Teutonico. Jesus, that is tough. What does that originate from?
Well, I'd like to say it's the Italian name that means German in Latin with a O at the end instead of a US.
What? Jesus.
Yeah.
That's a little bit too much. All right,
Just so you get it.
All right. So Joe's going to talk with us tonight about his craziness of going all throughout New York State with his patches, his challenges, and stuff like that. He has been everywhere and everywhere. So, Joe, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So I can't wait to hear about this all about New York State because, Catskills, Finger Lakes is my area, but anywhere else, you have been. So why don't you tell a little bit of background about yourself, sir?
So I'm originally from New York City, Brooklyn, Southern Brooklyn to be exact. So it's just about the flattest place. And also interestingly enough, one of the furthest places you can be in New York City from Manhattan. So I kind of lived out in the boondocks. Even though I grew up in New York City, I technically grew up in the equivalent of a small New England fishing village known as Sheepshead Bay. And today it is a lot of gaudy condos and really built up compared to what it was. But I remember driving to the local movie theater, for instance, and seeing like literal chickens like in the road down by what we call the End, down near Emmons Avenue in Sheepshead Bay. So it's, there's a lot of history there of it being a really rural area, essentially the breadbasket of New York City. So it's sort of this weird mix of being an extremely urban area that has this rural past. And believe it or not, I had a national park right in my neighborhood growing up because I grew up right near Gateway National Recreation Area, which is basically a bird sanctuary, marsh, that goes from New Jersey to Eastern Long Island. And but the highest elevation gain on these trails was like maybe 16 feet. So
Wow.
it's, when you move upstate, and which I did just as COVID was getting started, I, started doing these nature walks that everybody was doing. And I'd done a little bit of hiking in my 20s. I did live in the Hudson Valley and the Catskills in my 20s, but I had no idea that there was this hiking, kind of peat bagging world. I thought that to do something like that, you would have to live in Colorado or somewhere in the West Coast. I knew I did some hiking in the Gunks with some local people. I remember going back a few years later and trying to find this beautiful waterfall, and like buying a map at like a gas station and like not even getting, half a mile from the road. So fast forward 20 years, it's COVID. I'm in my 40s and starting to get interested in the different types of terrain that you would see in, this area. I live in Rochester now, and it's sort of the Finger Lakes. It's the Western Finger Lakes, though. So it's a little bit more, you definitely get the flavor of sort of the Midwest here, the Great Lakes, which I think a lot of people think of the Great Lakes as being very industrial. You think of a state like Michigan, people think of Detroit, Motor City, but they don't really understand that like these areas near the Great Lakes and the Finger Lakes too are these sort of like, I think they call Michigan like a sportsman's paradise. It's lots of forest. It's some of the last you'd call frontier land on the East Coast. And it's a very interesting place where once you go right outside of the Rochester area, just, within an hour drive, all these towns have their own little backcountry, which is pretty cool. You find these, tree farms, and then some, usually public lands, usually in the form of wildlife management areas. And then when you go further down the southern tier, there's more of really what I would call like more wild areas. I think Salamanca is the only city in the United States that's located on an Indian reservation.
Yeah. The whole city's leased from the Seneca Nation of Indians.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You don't really think about that when you think of, most people think of New York State, they think of New York City.
Yep.
And that includes, I think, maybe a lot of people who haven't been out this way. It's a totally different world. It is like, and for me, it's really a paradise because I found a new hobby to do in middle age that, resulted in me being in better shape than I was, in my 20s probably.
And so when you moved sort of like north, when you started cascading, what got you into hiking? What was your initial thing that just like, hey, I'm going to start doing this shit?
Really, I started watching this YouTube channel called Adventure Archives. It's a group of friends from Ohio, and they do these trips, and they've done Mount Whitney. They've done a lot of peaks, but mostly just friendly, these, nice weekend backpacking trips. And that's what made me start thinking about, going out more. And then I kind of discovered a lot of the Adirondack YouTubers. Brian hikes all day. He does a lot of hiking in the Catskills too. Jay Morrison, Jonathan Zaharik, and these guys were a lot of times they were day hiking, which for me was a little bit of an easier, entree into that. Not having to, though. My first big trip was actually a backpack, which in Leavenworth State Park, which was just my first kind of challenging hike. Was in Lake George. I did one of the smaller peaks there just on a whim. Literally just looked up the hike on All Trails the night before and was hooked. Like once I got up to a bald summit for the first time and I saw Lake George down there, and even though it's only 2,000 feet above sea level, it's actually the same elevation as the hills that I train on around here. It gave you that mountain experience. It was this rocky bald summit with almost 360-degree views. And that is something that you cannot ever package or bottle. You can only get it. It's not the same if you drive. Like I've been to the top of Pikes Peak. I took the Cog Railroad up there. It's not the same, when you work for it. And the challenge is really,
So you start off with that first excursion up to the Lake George area, and you then eventually you start hiking all over the state. You've been the Finger Lakes
Yeah.
area in
Yeah.
central New York. You've been over to the Allegheny Mountains and the Allegheny Park,
Mhm.
Catskills, the Adirondacks.
Yeah, I really try to, go to these overlooked areas that, I mean, it's in my interest because these are places that are more convenient for me to get to, but a lot of them are these really overlooked areas that, like I said, they have fire towers, in some cases, very challenging terrain, in other cases, it's very accessible. It's this whole wide range of hiking
Mhm.
that it's this sort of the Bristol Hills where I do a lot of my hiking locally. They're about an hour south of Rochester, and I refer to them actually as the Little Catskills because they kind of resemble these rounded. It's sort of the northern terminus of what would you call like the Allegheny Plateau, and there's this last little bit of these mountainous hills coming out of cornfields out of nowhere seemingly. And some places I found, I've talked to people who've lived 5 minutes down the road and they have, they never even thought, unless maybe they happen to hunt or something, like, oh, I never figured to go up there into the wildlife management area and, check it out for the views or for the physical challenge. And it's not to say people aren't doing that here. I'm not the first by any means, but, getting involved more with the Finger Lakes Trail, doing trail maintenance, which I've done, I think 3 full days of trail maintenance this year.
Nice.
Yeah, twice with the FLT Roving Trail Crew, which is basically just like wherever they need help, they'll just send an email out, hey, we need people in Ithaca, next Saturday. Twice with them, and then once with joined ADK, the Adirondack Mountain Club. Once with them, which it's the Genesee Valley chapter, which is the local chapter of ADK. And you really start to learn the area and love the area. And one of these trail maintenance was just like rebuilding a bridge, like which I knew nothing about. So I'm basically just like, well, I have a strong back. I'll just be your mule and I'll
Right.
carry
Yeah.
in the bags of cement and push the wheelbarrow. And I learned a lot about engineering from doing these things. And that's one thing I love about hiking. It's this multidisciplinary thing. I've always looked at, areas where you can kind of big picture stuff, and hiking is really gives you a little bit of everything where there's, and you can take as much as you want. You can get as challenging as you want, whether it's in the, going up in the Rockies or, going on some gorge hike in the Finger Lakes. It's,
So of all these places you've been,
Yeah.
Joe, where is it you can't get enough of that terrain, that area? And why is it that you're drawn to that particular mountain range or wilderness area?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would really have to say, I mean, in some ways, I really love the Catskills. It's just kind of far for me most of the time, so I can't get there as much as I would like. Locally, definitely the Bristol Hills, hands down. There's places that I still haven't explored there. There's Clark's Gully. I still haven't done.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, with the rope ladder.
Yep,
I'm just
yep.
talking to this like 80-year-old guy at the gym the other day who had just done it with like a couple of months ago with his kids and his grandkids, and he was talking about scrambling up the side, and he was pulled on some root or something to help himself
Yep.
up, and it came off, and he fell, like he slid down like 10 or 15 feet, and if he wasn't caught by a tree, he basically would have been like dead, he says.
We had some old nylon rope that we replaced when we did it with my friend Chad. It was
Good.
it's pretty crazy.
I know the 12 Falls Trail in High Tor also has some type of improvised rope that the DEC does not maintain. It's just some guy tied a rope up there.
Yeah.
What is it, like clothesline? Is that what the strength rating is, or is it?
They really have some pretty good. Some people take care of those
Yeah.
amazing those gullies up there that they
And
will
there is a
actually
local hiking. Yeah, I ran into one guy that was actually rappelling down one of the sides of the gully one day, and he was like, just some kid like he would rappel down and then kind of scramble up. There's like maybe a class 3 rock scramble going back up the corner. And he seemed a little bit offended that I didn't want to just strap the harness on and like I mean, I was in the middle of one of these like sort of ultra long days that I was trying to make a certain time, and I'm also like, I just met you, and I don't know if I want to go rappelling down a cliff.
Yeah,
he was counting a couple of beers. Like he wasn't drunk, but like it was kind of like he was like, "Come on, what's
And he's doing this solo.
Yeah, totally solo. He had his
Wow.
dog. His dog was going nuts.
Yeah, his dog was belaying him
when he would rappel down. Yeah, he was tied up to a tree, and he's like, "This thing will hold 2,000 pounds. Like you don't have to worry about anything." And just the idea of rappelling down something like that, would take a little bit more thought.
Yeah.
Before I just jumped into it.
When you started like hiking and stuff, I followed you for a while now. You've gotten all these challenges. What kind of got you into all these challenges? Can you explain some of these challenges?
So through what they kind of call YouTube University, through that world, I learned about this guy, Mike Radomski, Outside Chronicles, and he created a lot of these challenges just to basically get people more interested in their local parks and hiking trails, as well as to raise money. He raises like thousands of dollars for each challenge.
Wow.
Finger Lakes Trail Conservancy. There's a search and rescue out. I don't think they cover Monroe County where I am, but it's the Niagara Frontier Search and Rescue. They cover, I believe, 8 counties in Western New York, and they're the only wilderness rural search and rescue in Western New York. So they're it, and they're, I know that they showed up at a couple of the sort of after party events where you get your patch, and so there's a lot of great and local hiking trails too. There's the Crescent Trail in Fairport and Pittsford, right outside of Rochester. It's like a local sort of long distance style trail that links up a lot of these local parks and nature preserves. And it's really amazing to think that so many of these people have donated land. These people that could have really cashed in a lot will just turn their family farm into a nature preserve.
Yeah. So that areas like those areas got you into those challenges and stuff, the outdoor or outside chronicles.
Yeah. So it was a lot of drive. So first of all, I didn't really understand what he meant by Western New York at first. So I didn't realize that the Finger Lakes Challenge was kind of like the unofficial Rochester version of it, or at least it was at the time. So I did the Western New York Challenge, which involved a lot of short, easier trails. And sometimes I'm driving, 2.5 hours. So now I just do like the ultra version normally. And this winter I did like the Finger Lakes version, which was more just kind of like the Rochester area. I guess they didn't want to call it like the Rochester Hiking Challenge, but it takes you more out to places like Naples.
Oh yeah, nice.
Down more in the Finger Lakes, but closer to like where I am than more towards you. But yeah, and it's still going on. I'm doing the ultra versions, which are actually make great. I just did Niagara Gorge a couple weeks ago. That's one of the ultras. And those are like 15 to 25 mile hikes that just have to be completed within 24 hours.
All right. Oh wow.
You'd be surprised. Yeah, it's just the distance alone is.
So for our listeners who are downstate, maybe in your old Sheepshead Bay turf, right? Living in their poshy condos down there now.
Yeah.
What challenge or ultra in central New York or western New York would you recommend to them as being worthy of, devoting a few days to driving upstate, spending the night, maybe starting early the next morning and doing this ultra?
Definitely, I would say my favorite is the Letchworth, which whether or not was a challenge ultra, I would still do it every year, is the Letchworth branch of the Finger Lakes Trail.
And so tell us about that. Why would somebody from, Sheepshead Bay find it interesting and fun to drive up and doing the Letchworth challenge?
I think even though it's in a state park and not necessarily a wilderness area, it does give you a wilderness experience, as well as some of the sort of, I remember when I did it, I actually brought a tent, even though I had reserved, you can call up the park and like reserve there's 2 lean-tos along the 25-mile trail, and you actually have to call and reserve them. I brought a tent just to be, I had like that New York City paranoia, like I'm going to get there and there's going to be some kind of a mess.
Yeah.
Mhm. Paul Simon's going to be playing, and the place is going to be all crowded. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I like the fact that I think for somebody newer to, especially backpacking, they would be able to make the reservation.
Oh, that's nice.
So what's the attraction? What's the terrain like? What is somebody going to see?
It's
Give the
really
sales pitch.
It's really nice for the most part. There's a lot of these old pine tree plantations, like red pines and things. So there's a lot of nice soft pine duff that you're hiking on, similar to what you'd see in other parts of the country. So it's pretty easy terrain. To me at the time, it seemed like difficult. Just because there's about 80 of these little ravines that you have to go up and down. So there's a little bit of challenging. There could be some slippery, more craggy terrain when you're going up and down these ravines. But, for the most part, it's a very doable. I did it with my father-in-law, who was in his 60s. We did it together as an overnight. And I've done it since then as an ultra, just as a day hike. So either way, I would say if you were maybe more athletic minded, to do it more as the ultra, but it would be fun either way. Like I still do
So
backpacking.
Letchworth is full of waterfalls, correct?
So there's the 3 main ones. There's the upper falls, middle falls, lower falls. You do get a view of the middle falls there's a separate overlook, a blue blazed trail, right from where most people start, which is parade grounds, which is also a very historical place. It's where the Civil War soldiers would drill, actually from the area. And there's a big, commemorative plaque and everything over there. That's why they call it parade grounds. And again, you find out these little things about these places and these, Citizens Conservation Corps camps that, people may or may not know about. Very few people know about parade grounds, I've found. It's also not an entrance that's normally used by people. It's a small parade ground. And also you're getting the view of, so I would suggest even maybe checking out the more touristy part of Letchworth, which is on the west side of the Genesee River. And because the FLT actually runs on the east side of the river, which is like the more wild part of the park. You're not going to have all these rock walls protecting you from, going over a cliff or something. It's a lot more raw experience of this sort of epitome of, even though it's not a Finger Lake per se, it's like a great little slice of Finger Lakes and really what that whole area is about, which is a lot of where you're most likely going to be losing more elevation than you're gaining if you're doing an end to end. It's a lot of, this gorge hiking, which is great, because I always say a gorge as essence is tougher than a mountain, because you have to go up to go to the car.
Yeah.
So when I do those, Hemlock and Canadice Lake hikes, which a lot of the hikes I've been doing lately are just ones that I kind of make up,
So with your challenges, what are you going after? What have you completed, and what have you going after?
Okay, so I did the Western New York Winter Hiking Challenge, was the first one I did. And then after that, I realized it was going to turn into like the kind of the Western New York Driving Challenge because of all these miles I was covering. After that, I started just strictly doing like the ultras. So I think I'm going on my 3rd year of ultras and winter. This past year, I did the Finger Lakes Winter. And these are an annual thing. So it's time to be, they have like their sort of 3-season challenge, Western New York and Finger Lakes dual challenges. And then in this, the winter version, which is usually less trails, the driving can be sometimes sketchier than the actual hikes.
Interesting.
Because it's these are not. I remember one time I was driving to the Catskills and I took the southern route through Ithaca, like, the old New York, New York 20, US 5, I think it is, or US 20, New York 5. And I was so happy when I got to the mountains because there was actually guardrails. Because, when you're driving over by Ithaca and that whole area, you're driving along these huge gorges, and there is nothing stopping you from going over. It is insane.
Crazy. So other than the driving, Joe, what has been the most difficult challenge that you've completed or tried to complete, but it was so difficult you haven't completed it yet?
The 46ers are definitely tough, especially doing them solo as sort of a slower hiker who, a lot of times the camping is not the greatest, especially in these more remote peaks. And so just logistically, it's pretty tough. That, like I said, the last time I was in the Sewards, I did Donaldson Emmons. I think I was on trail at 8 a.m. I got back to the car at midnight.
Wow.
Stewart's was closed. That was a real bummer.
Couldn't get
No
coffee.
gas station pizza for me. Yeah. And they just closed too. The guy was like, had his hands up in the air, like, I can't do anything,
Wow.
It's
That's wrong.
But yeah, the 46 is tough. I started the 48 recently in New Hampshire. That's going to be in some ways more challenging, in some ways more accessible. One thing I found weird in the whites was on the accessibility side, it's good. On the other hand, there's this interstate, I forget which interstate it is, that runs right along where I was on Madison, where like I was above tree line and I was hearing trucks like, downshifting.
Jake brakes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was hearing Jake brakes like
Madison.
2,000 feet up in the air. It was amazing. I was,
Yeah. I can't remember on Madison
that's-
that I remember that. I forgot what that was called, but yeah.
it was the Daniel Webster Scout Trail, and then also on Franconia Ridge going up. I think that was also the Blue Trail.
Well, yeah.
Daniel Webster was blue blazed, and then I think the way I went up Franconia was the actual 18.
Nice.
Yeah. My impression of the whites is the hikes in one respect are a lot like the Catskills. You park your car, you start climbing.
Yes.
Whereas in the Adirondacks, you park your car and then you hike 3 to 6 to 8 miles, and then you start climbing.
Yeah.
It's totally the end of the day when you're tired and you have this. One thing I found that the stream crossings are actually easier in the dark because your headlight just becomes like a pool light and you can see exactly where the deep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see where the water
That's interesting
flow is.
intel.
Yeah, you can see a lot better than in the daytime.
Yeah. So you've completed 3,500. Correct? What number are you? You don't mind me asking. You remember?
4357, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what else have you completed so far? And then what else? You said you're doing like the what is it? The niner? I'm not familiar with the Adirondack
Saranac
stuff.
Lake.
Yeah.
I think it was the Lake George 12. I'm kind of like slowly working towards.
Okay.
Just for fun. Like I was gonna make Cat Mountain sort of another like annual tradition. I figured, let me try to knock out. This year I only did I think it was Erebus or Erebus, and then there is a bunch more. But I could probably knock them all out. I'm trying to figure out the best time of year to go there. This year's was really buggy.
Oh God.
And then there are also rattlesnakes.
Yeah,
it might be better to do in the wintertime.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of like you said, we talked about earlier, is that the Saranac 9 and stuff like that have a lot of rattlesnakes on the area, Lake George area.
I think Lake George is known for rattlesnakes. I don't know that they're as big of an issue up in the northern Adirondacks. I haven't heard much about snakes up there, but the Saranac, I think it's the Saranac 6, the Lake Placid 9. There's so many of them.
There you go.
I know that you could do this for, and then when you talk about gridding and stuff, I know Tad you're working on a grid right now, right, for the Catskills.
No, I finished that
Oh
going
wow.
on 2 years ago. Now I'm just
Oh wow.
yeah. I randomly hike the mountains, and I'm kind of working on the
Just the
Shit.
all trails.
yeah, the all trails, the 100 highest, and whatever suits my fancy. I kind of after the grid, I'm
Yeah.
just not into doing another list for
So
a
one thing
while.
I did to kind of push myself for the regular challenges that I've done, like the winter versions of the local challenges, is so usually you'll have to do like, let's say 9 out of 14 of the hikes. I'll always make sure to do every single one. Usually there's an additional bonus hike, and if you do them all, you get this sticker which says I hiked them all.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's worth it.
similar.
It's worth that extra effort for that
Yeah,
sticker.
yeah.
It's pretty handsome.
This is what I use at work. So I'm just like, I got it like a trophy up on my desk.
So here's a good question for
Yeah.
you, because I run into this. Do you ever find that you're out on one of these epic adventures? You're just like lost in the wilderness. You're just completely away from it all
Mhm.
for hours, maybe for you a day or two. Then you come back to the office and people ask you, "Oh, hey, Joe, what'd you do this weekend?" And you start telling them what you did over the weekend, and you realize they don't have a fucking clue what it's like
Yeah.
out where you were doing what you were doing, because these are people that never come untethered from the
Right.
comforts of,
And I remember
suburban
being one of
living.
those people too. And like,
Yeah.
so I could kind of relate to that. And it's funny. I had one coworker once asked me, they're like, nobody's making you do that. Like you just do that. They're like, you do that for fun.
Yeah.
They have a hard time understanding that. Like
My response is, I do this to get away from people like you
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
go out there.
So,
So.
Joe, what has been your most difficult hike yet?
A couple of the Catskills were pretty rough. I would say that a lot of them, they were rough, but I got through them all. I don't think I ever turned around on a Catskill hike. North Dome, for being relatively inexperienced at the time, seemed like so crazy. And I remember I didn't want to go back down that way.
Where'd you go? Where did you
More
approach
steep
from?
way from the Devil's Path, where
Oh, yeah.
Bird Path from Spruceton.
So what year did you do that?
This was, I guess, 2023.
Yeah. Because what I've noticed is from about maybe 2021, there's just a beaten social path up that
course.
side of the mountain. And it's not what it was. I remember the first time I went up from the Devil's Path side. You spent a lot of time route finding because there's just so many rock outcroppings and ledges. It's hard to pick which one's going to be the right one to hike
Yeah.
towards, and then how you're going to get up that versus you get there and you realize there's no way up it that isn't too sketchy to continue on and then moving around. But my last time over there, it was just missing trail markings, but it had all the indicia of a
And
trail.
now it would probably seem the same way to me. At the time, I don't think I was that attuned to following even a herd path. So I was kind of like route finding up some of those ledges. And yeah, I remember just, pulling on a tree and having
Yeah.
it disintegrate in my
Yeah.
hand. And
Yeah.
I almost turned around. I remember
Yeah,
filming
so-
a video where I was like, I may turn around, but I figured it out. It was,
So my pro tip is when you get into one of those situations where
Yeah.
you're trying to get up and over a rock outcropping or ledge,
yeah,
is when you're grabbing onto something and you realize it's starting to give way, you need to pretend that there's like a pack of mountain lions beneath you. So you give it that extra effort to pull yourself up and over. And then I found as you're getting close to the top of that ledge, you need to roll onto your back, because then you can arch your back over the top. It works really well. But key to that is envisioning the mountain lions or bears pursuing you up that ledge. And it gives you like more of an adrenaline surge to get over.
I think that's pretty much how I got up the Cornell
Yeah.
Crack. I wound up just like literally rolling out. Yeah, like a clown out of a circus car.
Right. Yeah. It works best when nobody's around.
I gotta admit, that's a tough hike. I did that. I don't even know. I don't remember. 2016, and I started to ascend a little earlier than I should have, and I
On
just
North
hit.
Dome?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just hit ledges upon ledges, and like you said, Joe, I was a little freaked out about like, wow, this never freaking ends.
Yeah.
Like I just keep hitting this, and then
And
finally
I
get
kept
stopped.
thinking, I don't want to go back down
Yeah.
this. Like, how the hell
Right?
am I going to get back down? Luckily, I ran into two guys on Cheryl, and they're like, yeah, there's an easy herd path going down to 42 from here. And they're like, yeah, we can give you a ride back to Spruce. And I remember I was having some toe issues at the time, so I was going really slow downhill, because my toes were just banging on the front of my boot. And I was really happy that they were waited for me
Nice.
at the car, because I got there probably about 20 minutes after they did.
Wow.
Um, and then I met that same, which I wish I could remember his name, but I met the same guy on Slide. He
Yeah.
recognized me.
That's very cool.
That's the funny thing is, like, by the last winter I was hiking in the Catskills, people were coming up to me and just saying, like, Joe.
Nice.
Like, people had no idea
More
like,
popular
who they
than
are.
I am.
I couldn't. Yeah, it was weird. It only happened but it happened really close together where I started thinking, like, wow, does everybody like know? I better like be careful what I say, like.
The listener spotlight. Let's put the spotlight
Yeah.
on him. Damn. Have you ever been caught in like a situation, like a sticky situation where you're like, man, this is
Yeah.
going to be tough.
Yeah, and I think they say like every trail teaches you a lesson. So as I progress, I always will encounter that one thing where I'm like, the thing is I'm usually solo, so I'm pretty quick to turn around if I have to. I haven't really had to do that too many times. Maybe just in the winter. But yeah, as a newer hiker, high tour, what I like to call the crazy cliff walk, that was my first encounter with death. Where I'm like, this is, but the funny thing is, I figured it out. A lot of times, when you figure these things out, you're like, oh, okay. So on this thing, you don't actually walk on the actual trail. You kind of just like scramble over the trees, because like the cliff kind of tilts. So the trail is like tilted down into the gully.
Mhm.
So, but you're thinking, oh, I'm supposed to walk on the trail. But most people do is they kind of scramble over the trees. I've also noticed most people do it in the opposite direction that I'm going, and I think there's something with doing it in that way. You're a little bit more in the trees. Most people, their dominant foot is their right side, so that would be the side that's, in more like on that side where you can hold on to something.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I remember the first time I tried to do gray in the Adirondacks. That was kind of sketchy and crazy, and I was running out of time because there was thunderstorms coming. And I remember I just had barely enough time to run. I literally ran over the summit of Mount Marcy, and I ran so fast that I ran past the summit, and I had to go back to take my photo at the plaque or whatever over there.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, I want to get the hell, because I'm thinking I'm the highest person in New York State right now, and if lightning is going to strike anything, it's going to strike this spot right here,
Yeah.
And then I remember, descending down below tree line, and then there's, I think, Little Marcy. So then you go back up, because I didn't go that way. I came the long way around from Lake Arnold.
Oh, wow.
So I was going down the main Marcy Trail. Yeah, I went up.
Wow.
I think they call it Schofield Cobble, and I dropped my phone too on the way up. I was charging my phone, and the charging cable, I think, snagged on a tree branch. And so I'm one of these people, like, I will reflexively pat my pocket to like make sure my phone's there. And I'm almost to the top. And one thing somebody told me, they're like, Schofield Cobble, you don't want to go down it. You just want to go up it because it's too steep. So then I wound up having to go back down Schofield Cobble. Wow. And my phone was just laying right in the middle of the trail.
Wow, lucky.
Yeah.
And there was nobody there because it was crappy weather. So I was the only person. I had the mountain all to myself.
God.
But yeah, that was really lucky. And also, like, it was lucky that it hadn't started raining yet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that was my navigation and everything. I mean, it's still basically, I always bring paper maps with me, but that would seriously suck just for the loss of.
What do you use for navigation on your phone? What app are you hooked up with?
I have Avenza and Gaia, and I do use like especially Gaia occasionally, but mainly All Trails. And I also make my topo maps using All Trails.
What
I know
I know.
it's
All right.
easier.
We still love
I
you,
know.
Joe. We still love you.
Joe
Yeah.
Joe mentioned before that he looks at the topo maps, and
Yeah.
people I respect people that do that beforehand, where they just just don't go on all trails and just say, hey, I'm gonna do this. Like, hey, is Mount Marcy really 18 miles long, like this amount of gain?
Yeah, one of my main my main training areas right now is not on All Trails. It's not on if it's on All Trails, it's only on my activities,
Mhm.
my recorded activities, and I hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I use all trails, for parking areas. I look at it, I see where you can park, and then everything else, I'll just look at topographic maps or such like that. But like, I don't judge people. Well, I do actually. Never mind. Sorry to say, I do judge people that use to use all trails that it will explain. But people like you, Joe, who like, yeah, I'll use Gaia and stuff. That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I normally, if I'm in the mountains, I very rarely have to rely on, at this point, I can pretty much just spot.
Right?
There's not really a whole lot of actual bushwhacking going on. If you're just looking to bag a peak, it's,
Yeah.
the bushwhacking that I do would be more like around here, which has its own, the cool thing around here is it's one of the easiest places in the world to navigate because as long as you could see the water source that's nearby, exactly, like, if I'm in Letchworth State Park, I know the Genesee River flows north.
Yeah.
So it's like, these gorge hikes are like very easy. It's just funny when I call it amateur season in the fall. It's like the time between the hot weather and then hunting season. You get all these people on the trail and people will be coming up to me, like totally lost. And not just like I've gotten turned around before, but like it's weird to be totally as an adult lost where you don't know how to get to a road,
But,
like
but
that's a little
sometimes
bit.
that's a good place to be. Lost. I mean, if you have a job, you have a mortgage, you're trying to save for retirement, right? You need to be to the office on Monday. It's kind of nice on Saturday and Sunday to just have like no clue how to get back to your car.
That can be actually that's probably the tougher part because it's pretty easy to get to the summit, right? It's like you're going to the
The
pinnacle.
roll of up, unless you hit a plateau on the way up. So, Joe, let me ask you. You've come a long way over the last 3-4 years. If we've got some novices listening to this episode, why don't you give them your advice on what your biggest mistake was when you were starting out and what you learned from it?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say there was a single big mistake that I made. I think that you just kind of have to go out there and ensure that your mistakes aren't going to be like fatal mistakes. I mean, you're always, like I said, every trail teaches you a lesson, whether it's you're going to run out of water or whatever it is, you just have to be able to somehow have a plan B, a plan C. So yeah, I mean, one thing I would say would be to have like, and this is something I learned from Syntax 77. He's a YouTuber, and he'll go out to a place. He has a general plan, and he says, if everything works out, I'm going to do this A, B, and C. But if I'm not making good time, I'm going to do this instead. And I think that's a good way to be. Not to be so, I feel like people, if they're just checking off lists, that can be a problem. And I think there's been like a record number of rescues this year in the Adirondacks for reasons like that, where, people think, yes, anybody can do it. But, if you're just anybody, you have to kind of like become that somebody who can do it. You can't just say, I want to do it. And therefore, and that's where having the right clothing and everything comes in. And there's some things you're only going to pick up, like the stuff I picked up from you with like even tying your shoes. When I wear boots, I still lace them the way I think you had sent me a video, Tad, about how runners lace up their shoes
Yeah.
to keep the heels back.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't really have to do that
Gotcha.
with trail runners because they tend to have very thin inner soles, insteps.
Yeah, but it's a
so that
simple
you don't-
thing. Just tying your boots to prevent your heel from sliding forward. But what I'm hearing from you, Joe, is it sounds like before you go out, you feed your head with a bunch of data, whether it's from YouTube or elsewhere. You just don't look at somebody's cool post on Instagram and say, if that person did it, I can do it, and then drive out to try doing it. So you would grab some intel before you went out. And the other thing I'm hearing from you is you're kind of like a football coach. You're going out with a game plan that this is what I'm going to do, on third down. If I'm not moving the ball down the field, I'm going to run. I'm going to this, I'm going to that. You've got your substitution ready to go, which is good. I've found when, as a solo hiker like you, that, and more so in the early days of my hiking in the Catskills, having those contingency plans already like built into my head, avoided me getting into some sticky situations.
Right, because you're still following the plan, even if it's
well, that's part of the plan. This is,
go back and have an early lunch at Brio's, like you're following the plan. It's
right. So what about gear? Did you, when you were starting out, did you make any gear choices that you regret, that you wish you would either spent more money on the gear, it done more research?
I started out, that's like everybody else, wearing boots in the summertime. I think trail runners, it's a new enough phenomenon that, I could kind of be forgiven for not, but it really did make a difference. Like ultras, I've tried a few different of the zero drop style, and they seem to be the best for me. I have very wide feet, and something like Solomon's are not, I just can't do it. It's, and
you find them too narrow, the Solomon?
Oh yeah.
Wow. Oh.
Especially in the toes, the toe box.
Yeah, I agree.
Once I wore trail runners for a summer. It's actually funny, when I did Catskill High Peak, it was just starting to get chilly in the fall, and I was ready to put my Gore-Tex on, and I put my feet into my Salomon Gore-Tex, and like excruciating pain after. So, and I've forgotten the only other shoes I have were the trail runners that had hole torn in the mesh. So now I'm going up Catskill High Peak with shoes with holes in them on a pretty chilly, I say very rainy. It was raining like an inch per hour.
Yikes.
Like those little streams with like gushing with white water. And I don't know, this seems to be a thing with me. Like whenever I see a sketchy stream crossing, and they weren't really sketchy, like life-threatening sketchy, but they look sketchy. And I always seem to wind up having to go over the stream like 5 or 6 times, just because I was planning on descending down off of what's that overlook?
Hurricane Ledge.
Yeah, I was gonna, but the visibility was so bad. The fog I was in a cloud. It just looked like you were stepping off the cliff. You went down there. And I'm like, all right, let me just go back the way I came. And I was having kind of trouble. It was just really dark. It was rainy. It was pouring. It was like everything was soaking wet. Everything, my clothes were just, drenched. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, why am I going to worry about finding my way back the way I came? There's a snowmobile trail that encircles the entire mountain, so I don't need to. It's kind of like going to the summit, you're just going to the top. Now I just need to go down the safest way I can. I didn't even really worry so much about the map as much as just trying to find a safe way down. And it's weird to me because I got to the car, it was only like 3 p.m., but it was so dark that the way I remember it, it feels like it was 3 a.m.
Yeah.
It was just a crazy, that was probably one of my craziest hikes, that it actually kind of like, you feel a little bit like traumatized afterwards.
So was your shoes that you upgraded? Like you would say?
I would say, those trail runners definitely in the summertime and in the wintertime, oboes.
Almost.
The
That's good stuff.
bridgers, those are the best. I mean, the first winter I hiked, I would actually get a little cold. My feet would get a little cold. These summer socks, you are fine. It is
Are they insulated?
amazing. I'm sorry?
Are those oboes insulated?
Oboes.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Nice.
have 225 grams, I believe.
Hmm.
And this winter I also invested in the Sherpa North Face mittens.
Nice. Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are really, yeah. I was trying to eat like an Italian combo sub, wearing my mittens on top of tabletop.
Why'd you
in the
save this story
Adirondacks.
till the end? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Italian combo, mittens.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
It's like mayo going everywhere.
Drinking some of that 103 proof bourbon.
Well,
Yeah,
you're
right.
on the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
That's
In
how
the
you keep the
winter.
lights.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's how you
try-
keep warm, right? That's how they did it back in the 70s and 80s. They just had beers on top of the freaking mountain and descended with cotton.
Yeah. When you need to light a fire, you just, light up your
Cigarette.
bourbon.
The day I did Donaldson and Emmons, there was a group of people. They actually gave me a beer when I was eating my lunch. Maybe that's why it took me till midnight to get back.
Could have been a big beer.
With all these challenges you're doing and stuff like that, with all this kind of exploration that you're doing throughout New York State and then the other states that you're venturing over to, what like advice do you have to people that have a kind of like a tough time getting out of their local areas?
Just do it. I remember the first time driving to the Adirondacks, my tire pressure light went on, and I had this image of myself being like stranded somewhere. It turns out it was just one of those idiot lights that, the tire was fine. And I remember I drove like more than halfway there, drove all the way home. I remember I had my father-in-law actually like go over. Because it's been I'm probably 20 years since I've changed a tire. It's another thing I was concerned about. I practiced changing a tire just so I could go out next time with confidence. So I guess like whatever classes you need to take, I think everybody should at least take map and compass if you're going to go out on a trail. I don't understand, how you're not going to, and those skills are obviously perishable. So you got to try to, I really have to make myself, take out the map and compass sometimes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes it's better to do it, it's good to do that when you're not lost, right? Because how else are you gonna, you're where you are, right? From the GPS. So, track it, follow your progress on the map. If you're too lazy to triangulate your position, you can kind of do it more intuitively by studying the terrain. And there's even places in the Adirondacks where you can't use a compass because of the iron ore in the mountain. So
Yeah, the
one
iron
thing
deposit,
I
yep.
would say that more than anything else, just memorize. You want to be able to look at a mountain. I know it's tougher in the Catskills to do that, but you want to look at a mountain and say, I know that mountain is north of this mountain, and I could just use that to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And map and compass skills are essential, but not that hard to learn.
Right.
Just takes
They're not
5
that
or
hard
10
to-
minutes. That's all.
And they're fun to learn. Like when
Yes.
you learn it, you seriously feel like, holy shit, like I can get out of a sticky situation with this, or just like, damn, like you look at somebody else and you're like, can you like you show them this and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? You're like, I can beat you in a lot of stuff. Like,
Yeah, and just like the experience of, that's you can't really learn that in a class, but just the experience of reading the terrain, being able to see
oh yeah, yeah,
where there's a game trail or a herd path.
Yeah. Definitely.
And sometimes, sometimes I still, if I'm, kind of like daydreaming, I'll, wander, and then, you gotta just, don't be afraid to backtrack also. Like a lot of people, I think they get lost because they just keep going.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can go back to where you left the trail. You can, that's not against the rules. Sometimes I think people, they're playing this game with themselves where like they feel like they're, they have to do every single thing that they become like obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can't admit that they erred, made a
Yes.
mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
made so
Well,
many
That's
errors.
part of the fun.
Exactly.
the trips where you get, caught in nettles, those are the ones that you tell the stories about.
Yeah.
Not where you.
Yeah, I agree. You fail sometimes, but those are the stories you might share with some other people that be like will make them think twice. They're like, oh shit,
Right.
maybe I should I met a person on the trail that I had no clue had a impact wound from a stick. What do I do? And they're like, oh, maybe I should take a wilderness first aid because I might meet someone on the 2 mile stretch of freaking Plateau Mountain where you have no help. So
Did that happen to you?
no, it's just something
Okay.
I made up. It's just something,
Yeah,
with search and rescue, we try to think
Yeah.
of the craziest instances that you might have run against. And you got to admit, Plateau Mountain, there's no way for you to get a helicopter rescue. You're any far away, any trailhead away on the top. You're down in Diamond Notch. You're down in what's it called from the south, and then you're over in Milk Hollow.
Something I really,
Yeah.
that's very impressive that you do search and rescue.
Oh, well,
It's
thank you.
to get a call, in the middle of the night and head out, that is
The benefit of not having kids.
So Stosh, you mentioned that you guys, you mentioned that you guys try to think up these weird and bizarre search and rescue scenarios. Next time you're doing some training, why don't you run by the crew? Suppose a 19-year-old guy injures his ankle while riding his electric skateboard through this blue hole. What do we do? What do we do? Right?
What do
game
we?
plan.
It's like throw them out to the mountain lines.
Yeah.
Just
Excellent.
Yeah. So Joe, thank you for joining us tonight. One last
you.
question. Post hike brews and bites. This doesn't have to be in the Catskills. What do you suggest?
Post hike brews and bites.
Besides
we've kind of
Stewart's.
discussed a lot of the usual. Yeah, Stewart's is kind of like the go-to, right? That is it's a good question.
Come on, Joe, tell us you had to think of this before tonight. You knew you were coming on the show. You didn't.
Yeah. Is it lately I've been bringing like leftovers with me on these trips because I'm trying to save money.
Italian combos.
Microwaving. It's funny. The Italian combo was from a local Finger Lakes pizzeria. And I told this guy, I said, this is going to be the highest the highest sandwich in New York State.
That's a good thing to tell them. So anything local,
maybe I'll get a free sandwich next time.
What was that called? What was that place called?
Oh, it's Pudgy's.
Oh my God.
Pudgy's in Canandaigua. They're covered. It's total. If you go to the Canandaigua location, it's all taxidermy of like these exotic, like this, they do guided safaris.
Wow.
Hunting safaris in Africa. And yeah.
So you're not talking about the Pudgy's that's located all around the US, right? Because
I did not know it was a national chain.
Yeah, there's like brick pizza. That's what I call it. Brick pizza. We had one here in Oneonta.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll have to look that up. Pudgy's in where? Canandaigua, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I did. I went and watched the solar eclipse from there.
Really? It was in Honeoye. It was completely rainy, and I was in a freezing like rainstorm.
Oh,
it was cool to watch the sunrise in the west because my view was missed.
It was absolutely insane. So, once again, thank you to the monthly supporters and monthly sponsors. Really appreciate you guys sponsoring and supporting the show. It's a big deal. Thank you to everybody who has donated so far. Thank you to everybody who's listening, especially Joe and his his wife. Is it wife?
Yeah, my wife Colleen. She buys all my gear. She is my main gear buyer. She gets deals that I would never imagine. Points and all these things.
Does she want another husband?
Yeah.
So
no, it would be way too much work.
Well, thank you guys for listening to the show. Glad we could have you on, and glad you can talk about these challenges, get people out of their local area that they can just start exploring anywhere. So hope you had a good time.
Yeah,
yes,
Joe, good.
I did. Wonderful.
Good seeing you, Joe. Good talking with you. Can't wait to see you out on the trail again. But until then, I'm going to watch your epic documentaries on Instagram.
Yeah, Hiker Joe New NY, right?
Yeah, Hiker Joe NY.
Check him out.
Adventure.
It's good stuff.
Good stuff. All right, have a good night, guys.
Bye, guys.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this, you gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man.